3.
Hey everybody, welcome to week 4 of Game of Thrones Book Club. We are excited to be here. The gang's all here, and we read a bunch of chapters and are ready to discuss them. I'm James.
I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Joel.
And yeah, this is our Game of Thrones Book Club. If you're new to the book club, we read chapters and discuss them, like any old book club. And, let me get this rolling. All right.
Yeah, good move.
Hello.
Let us know if there are any audio or visual problems. Sometimes we run into them on these live streams, and we're hoping to avoid them.
I'm going to turn on the sound for my... Good. Okay.
Great.
All right. Nice.
All right, cool. So welcome. I'm glad you guys are all here. And yeah, do we need to do any administrative stuff before we get started?
No, we're good.
We're good. Well, let's ask the chat. I don't know, how you guys doing? How are you enjoying this so far? We're about what, a third of the way through
I suppose.
this book now?
I'm happy with our progress.
And I think the books are mostly similar lengths.
I'd like to be a little bit further, truth be told.
Yeah.
I want to get through game,
Yeah.
you know.
Getting
Yeah.
through game and like moving on from that will be a very good step for us. I think that'll give us legitimacy. It's like, oh yeah, we didn't just do the first book. We're in it to win it.
Well, it'll be more fun too because that's when it really starts to diverge from the show.
For sure.
Yes.
And I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you've probably noticed if you watched the show, as most of you have, that Game of Thrones is very similar to the first season of the show.
Yeah.
It is though. I was just reflecting about how like we're 3 episodes into the show, 4 episodes at most.
I think we
didn't
still
think
have
of it
some
like that.
some like episode 3 still.
Yeah.
Like the turning the hand, isn't that episode 3? And we still haven't had that yet.
I'm very excited to get to the turning of the hand.
Yeah.
That'll probably be next week, but yeah,
In the same showtime, do we just not see Cersei or Jaime for a couple episodes? I don't
No,
think
No,
but
they're
it's
there.
interesting
We
the way
get
we
more-
don't see them right now
Yeah.
for a little while.
that's true.
That's one of the fun parts of the show is they have scenes with characters where none of them are POVs, and those are really for the most part really well written and fun.
there's a great early show scene with Cersei and Robert.
Yeah.
That's
I
one of
can
the
see
best.
that, yeah.
And
Which one is that?
they just have this moment where they talk about how they kind of hate each other, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
the realm rests on their marriage.
yeah,
and
like
that
they
sucks
both
for the
have so
realm.
much pressure on them because they hate each other, but they have to be together.
And they kind of laugh about it.
Yeah.
It's like this weird, I don't know. You can tell how in the beginning, at least Cersei, she was very infatuated with Robert.
Sure.
And you can see how in like the very, very beginning, how that maybe could have worked, but it was so doomed.
Yeah, it's one of the many scenes that adds a lot more sympathy to Cersei.
For sure, because she asks Robert, like, was there ever a chance? And he says no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Because I think that, and we'll get more about it later in the books too, but I think that Cersei doesn't love Jaime with the same passion that Jaime loves Cersei. So I think that at that stage, I think you're right, Chelsea, that there was an opportunity. Had Robert lived up to the image of Robert, that he could have won Cersei away from Jaime.
And isn't there also a scene with Cersei and Catelyn where she talks about losing a child? or
That's
something?
at Winterfell still, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of added Cersei stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't get that in these chapters because these are none from her point of view. I mean, I guess Catelyn could have had that interaction. That was
Sure.
definitely a show addition just to make Cersei more relatable.
I think that furthers, though, the fact that A Game of Thrones is a mystery novel, and this is we're really getting to it in
Yeah.
this
Oh, yeah.
section. The game
Yeah.
is afoot, and I think that keeping the Lannisters at that distance is a big part of that story structure.
Yes.
Anything? Oh, Sigil.
Oh yeah.
Before we
This
get
week's
into it,
Sigil,
Yeah, it's great.
I really like this one. It's silhouettes of us, and I think it's very clearly us. My very prominent nose there. I love that. And then Lucy just walking across as she so often does. Lucy loves book club. She loves this black curtain that we put up. She plays in it all the time. This is by Christina Lucky Locky. She emailed it to us. So I don't know if she has a Twitter, but thank you, Christina, if you're here. We love you.
Also, really quickly, we met some of you at the Masquerade ball last night, the Labyrinth of Jareth.
Yeah.
And it was really fun, and someone said we looked good in our costumes, and thank you.
Yeah, I think that was
I
Astrid.
agree.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. So thanks for saying hi.
Cool. I think we're ready to jump into our first chapter.
Let's do it.
Arya II.
Oh boy.
It.
Hold on, just gonna update that little words there.
You guys can get started.
All right, Arya II. So, what happens in this chapter? I always like to write a little plot summary at the end of the chapter just so I can look back at it. Oh yeah, they're at breakfast, and she gets all upset and runs away to her room, and she has that awesome talk with Ned, and it ends with cereal forever.
Yeah,
That's right.
really great Arya character stuff here, I thought. And I think that we get a better sense of kind of her image of Ned really stood out to me, and how Arya is like observant and knows people. We get more of like who she likes to hang out with, who she thinks she's more peers with, and we also get more mystery stuff. I think on the first page of Arya 2, this is 215 of the mass market, Arya notes that there were only 50 of Ned's household guard. Most of the benches were empty. So this is planting the seed that Ned doesn't have a full battery of men at his disposal.
That's good to know, especially for later when he commits part of his household guard
Yeah.
to the
Yep,
City Watch.
exactly.
Splitting already lowered forces.
Yep.
Good call.
I did note on the same page early on how Jory and the rest of the men stand when Ned enters, showing him respect.
Great respect.
And this is also the chapter where we get the line that Ned said to Robb, "Know the men who follow you," he told Robb once, "and let them know you. Don't ask your men to die for a stranger."
Yeah.
Really important aspect of his character, and an important aspect of Robb's character later.
That whole paragraph, I really love how it shows Ned's governing style and how it's so personal.
Yeah.
He'll invite each person, his steward, his horsekeeper, his armorer, to sit with him a night and listen to their issues. And I can't get the sense, I can't imagine Robert doing that.
Yeah.
Probably not even Tywin. Tywin probably just thinks he knows what's up.
Yeah.
Ned is the only lord I can think of who would do that and really listen.
Someone in the comments from last week's episode, and I wanted to. I'm not gonna look it up, but maybe no. We got a lot to get through, and I wanted to throw it to you guys. I responded to the comment on YouTube, but I wanted to throw it to you guys. Somebody asked, "Do you think it's possible for a lawful good ruler to rule Westeros?" And I said, on a small scale, a lawful good ruler like Ned works. He can rule the North because it has a low population, and he can use this kind of governing style. But I said it would not work on a grand scale across 7 kingdoms. What do you guys think, since we're talking about Ned's governing style?
In terms of ruling Westeros?
Yeah, like could a person like Ned sit the Iron Throne?
I don't think so.
Wait, so we're saying lawful good?
Yeah.
What about the Tyrells? If they had achieved their goal of sitting the throne, don't you think they would be lawful good?
Which Tyrell would you call lawful good?
I think Marjorie, at least.
I don't know though.
She
because-
showed
No.
a true caring for the
But
citizens.
Marjorie's not
No,
about,
she's
like,
more.
code.
She's
Oh,
using. Yeah,
so like neutral good.
she would
She's
be
like
more like
neutral
neutral good.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh well then, yeah.
I think lawful good's gonna be screwed
Like someone like
because
Ned or Barristan or someone,
Yeah.
I agree.
If
Holds to
you're-
a code
Yeah.
much more strictly.
Yeah, if you're lawful good and you're restricted by operating through a code of honor and you're working through law, you have so many players in King's Landing that's such a easy weakness for them to exploit. Yeah, no. I don't
At
see-
least without dragons. I mean, for those who know the history better, were there ever any rulers like that? in the
Jaehaerys.
history of-
Jaehaerys the
Okay.
first.
The conciliator.
Yeah.
I'd say he was probably lawful good. Maybe that's it. Oh, maybe Aegon.
Aegon the Fifth.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't know
know
too much about his reign. I know more about his obviously
his
time.
upbringing.
Yeah.
Right.
From Dunk and Egg.
Aegon V. Yes, we all know.
The
Aegon
unlikely.
the-
He gets a shout out. In
He
the
does?
chapters.
Yeah.
I'll point it out.
Okay, please do.
When we get to him.
I had a follow-up thought to you, Graessle, on the
Yes,
idea
please.
of we do get in this chapter the relationship between the Starks and the common folk played as something positive, and I think in ways it is, but we also see from Arya's point of view and the change that she feels since Micah being killed in that everyone around her is lying, that they're not truly loyal to her, and I think you see more that it's kind of a one-way relationship. Like Micah wanted to play with Arya, he couldn't refuse as well, and it got him killed. The common people kind of always suffer.
Yeah.
This is another instance, and the line that I read too, the 2 lines that I read are another instance of George planting something subtle and then paying it off explicitly. And I think, Joel, you're pointing out one of the subtleties of the effect on the small folk that we're going to get played out explicitly, especially in Clash. So that's a very good point. I think when Arya, who's probably the most connected to the people of the Starks in a kind of explicit way, has this reaction to people she used to think of as friends and now are more other to her because of it.
Well, it's also the same, and I'm mixing up Bran chapters now because we've read so much, but it reminds me of the way that Bran's thinking of Robb. Because he complains that Robb
that's this week's Bran.
It is, okay, yeah. So he complains Robb is acting like a lord, not like a brother. Arya is thinking that her entire household guard, they're not her friends anymore, and I think I like that parallel. The younger siblings who don't necessarily have to act in a... They're not, like, expected to act a certain way because they're not in positions of power necessarily. So it's all these, like, older men that, like, they're not their friends anymore because they can't.
And it marks the change
that,
like, the kids don't fully understand. Like, why it has to be that way.
For sure.
Speaking of Robb the Lord, I think the chapters we read this week start to do a lot of the identity and nickname stuff that George uses throughout the series as a way of commenting on people, because in this chapter, it mostly applies to Arya. Throughout the series, she will undergo so many different identities as just part of her character growth. And here we have her being called Arya Underfoot, and what she referred to as Arya Horseface previously.
Yes.
But yeah, it's brought up again.
And Syrio calls her boy.
Boy.
That was a big deal that I underlined for sure.
There were a few times when no one comes up, but I think it's stretching to tie it, because it's like 217, no one talked to Arya. I was just like, oh, no one. And I think later on, as the series progresses, we can keep an eye out for that, where it might have been more
that's going to become more explicit, I think, in Clash.
But I think this early on, George probably didn't know that specific of a thing would happen.
I wonder if George knew, though, that she would eventually have her list, because we get a possible early version of that when she says, I hate them, the Hound and the Queen and the King and Prince Joffrey.
Yeah, I think the list is something that he knew early on, and yeah, that's a really good point.
Something I wanted to point out really quickly is just because we were talking a little bit about the way that Arya relates to these people and relates to her guard, and I think we've discussed before that one of her weaknesses is like the subtleties of interactions with people, and she, I think, is kind of bad at reading people. And this little passage where Fat Tom's knocking on the door.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, Fat Tom was knocking on her door. Arya, girl, what's wrong? He called out. You in there? No, she shouted. The knocking stopped. A moment later, she heard him going away. Fat Tom was always easy to fool.
Definitely.
Fat Tom, he was like, fine. All right, I'll leave
so
you
arrogant.
alone. Yeah. She thinks.
She's like, oh, he really thinks no one's here.
What a dumbass.
Yeah. I want to point out that I want to name a cat Fat Tom.
You once named a cat?
No, I want to.
Oh, that'd be great.
That is, whenever Erica and I discuss cats, I am saying whatever its name is going to be Fat Tom.
Tomard. Fat Tom for sure.
Fat Tom.
You better get a fat cat, dude.
Fat cat or not.
Fat cat or not.
Name is Fat Tom.
I also liked that we got on 222 a discussion of lying, and that Ned is saying that we all lie, and that a lie can have honor.
Yeah, he frames everything in terms of honor.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, for sure.
He's like, this was a okay thing to do because it had honor. Like, that's Ned.
And I think if R plus AL equals J is true, that was a lie with some honor.
Yeah, of course.
Well, yeah, I think that his justification saying that a lie can have honor is all about that.
Because of that.
Because that's the one thing that he can't really reconcile with himself. So every mention of something like that is just like trying to justify it to himself.
Yeah. Someone earlier in the chat said they love how sweet Ned is with Arya, and I love I love that too.
Yeah.
You know, like you have Fat Tom and Septa Mordain pounding on the door, but when Ned comes to talk to her, it's a soft knock at the door, and he's very tender with her. And I just love the conversation that they have. Is him? There's all these words like he held her gently as she turned to him.
Yeah.
No sweet one, he calls her, and he's just comforting her. And then he treats her like an adult. And this is one of my favorite character discussions in the books between Ned and Arya in this room, where he really just lays it out for her and is like, hey, you're old enough to know we're in a dangerous place. You can't hate your sister. As different as you guys are, we have real enemies now. We're actually in danger. We're not at Winterfell. And it's just so sweet to me that he treats her like an adult. And I think it's I think it probably is a turning point for her because
well, to that point, there's the moment that really stood out to me. He's sitting with Needle across his lap, which is a way that we saw him with Ice earlier, when he was talking to Catelyn, and he says to Arya, "You are too young to be burdened with all of my cares." He really wants to open up to her, and I think that desire even shows a respect. And then he says, "But you are also a Stark of Winterfell. You know our words. Winter is coming." She whispers, "These are cruel, hard times," and I think that just like with Bran going to see the execution that opened the book. Ned respects his children enough to know that they have a strength beyond their years. Arya says later, "I can be strong too. I can be as strong as Robb," and that's when Ned gives her Needle.
Yeah.
And I think that that respect is such a key component to his character as a father and as a family member. How he treats his children and how he treats his family, Sansa included, in a different way, of course, but I think that he recognizes that, especially when he compares her to Lyanna.
That's a high compliment from Ned.
Yeah.
The wolf blood.
Yeah.
I like that Brandon had more than a touch.
And I also really liked, Lyanna might have carried a sword too if my Lord Father had allowed it. So I think he's recognizing perhaps a mistake that Rickard Stark made. And I think also there might be a little bit, and you know, I'm curious what you guys think about this, with allowing Arya to carry a sword and be trained as a fighter, is he maybe recognizing Arya, who's like Lyanna, could get into a situation similar to that. She needs to be able to defend herself.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think he recognizes that he's not going to be able to change her ways, and he figures, well, might as well teach her to, defend herself, because she's Arya. She's not just going to change. She's probably going to get herself into some situation where she's going to need self-defense.
I want to believe that, but it's still to me a little half-hearted reading this chapter and then reading the next Ned chapter in which he runs into Arya and still assumes that, oh, you're going to become a lady, your sons will do these things.
Sure, but
disappointed.
I don't think he's changing the culture.
Yeah.
You know, like,
that's a lot to ask.
You know, not everyone can be Brienne.
Yeah, I think he's thinking you'll be a lady because that's what culture dictates, but you'll be a lady with a sword.
Yeah.
You'll be your own kind of lady.
Yeah.
I also think it's easier for people to make exceptions for their own children, because
That's true.
there's that empathy there.
Sure.
You know, it's easier for him to be like, well, my daughter
Exactly.
will be able to train with a sword.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is something I just think is interesting, and I just want to point it out without spoiling stuff.
Okay.
So, remember the sigil of our house, Arya?
Yeah.
The direwolf, she said, thinking
Oh,
of Nymeria.
yep.
She hugged her knees against her chest, suddenly afraid. Let me tell you something about wolves, child. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Summer is the time for squabbles. In winter, we must protect one another, keep each other warm, share our strengths. And very pointedly, she's thinking about Nymeria there. So keep Nymeria in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Because she ran away and Nymeria's not dead.
Well, earlier on that same page, Arya points out there were other wolves for her to play with. We heard them howling.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think it's important, that's a really important passage to point out, Chelsea. The lone wolf dies, the pack survives, given what we know about, given what we rereaders and show watchers know about where the Starks end up.
Yeah, and where Arya ends up.
Right.
And that she's, Yep.
Lizzie pointing out we should all be Lady Mormont kind of ladies. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here we stand.
I just like the profound effect that conversation has on Arya from Ned, because it says she had never loved him so much as she did in that instant.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we were talking before we got started about Ned's flaws and how sometimes he's really frustrating to read. But when it comes to being a parent, he's on point.
Yeah.
Like, Ned's got to
Yeah.
be one of the best parents
He's
in the series.
I was thinking about this last week too. He's the only good dad I can think of in the series.
The only good dad.
Yeah, like think of another good dad.
Sam, not genetically though. He's sort of an adoptive dad.
Oh. That's a tough one.
There's
If any,
not.
if-
If anyone can think of a good dad, at least a dad that's on Ned's level, I don't think there is one.
Is
Yeah.
Howland Reed good to his kids?
Howland Reed, maybe.
maybe, but we don't
really know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they speak highly
They speak
of him.
highly of him.
But you can speak highly of a father in a respectful, objective way without
Yeah.
them necessarily being a good parental figure.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, let us know if you have any, because I don't want to just sit here and think about that. But that's a really good point. Ned probably takes.
I want so badly to say Jamie, but you can't.
Sorry, I just saw something cool.
Oh.
I love like just skimming over stuff while we're talking, catching like really cool.
Yeah.
Again, people who are familiar with future events. It's hard. I don't want to like.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil, so you know, we really try to
Well, it's hard to
tiptoe
walk
around
this
anyone
line.
who's going through this
Yeah.
for the very first time. No show experience, no book experience, but we'll try.
All right, so here we go. It was the third time he had called her boy. I'm a girl, Arya objected. Boy, girl, Syria, Pharrell said, you are a sword. That is all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
very true.
I underline that same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love Sirio as a instructor. Like he's immediately like very attentive. He's a good coach. Like me as someone who is coached and a sports person, I'm looking at this and I'm like, this guy kicks ass.
Yeah, he
Like-
reminds me of teachers, because I danced growing. He reminds me of the dance teachers I had growing up that I really liked, but they were tough, but they
Yeah.
were very encouraging.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's as heavy as it needs to be to make you strong, and like he adjusts her grip before like chastising her for it. He's like, show me the grip, and then he's like, no, this is how you do it, and then like, and I think that all of that is really good. He lets her try. All right, now you will try to strike me. Arya tried, and for 4 hours, and then like. You know, so he's coming to her level and then adjusting there. So I think that I just really appreciate that about him. I really like Sirio Floro.
He's immediately
Yeah.
a very interesting character.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I like that Arya says it was not just a stick, but a true wooden sword, complete with grip and guard and pommel. Like Arya's excited about this wooden sword, but think back to when they were in Winterfell. Joffrey and even Robb
yeah.
were complaining that it was just wooden sword instead of actual steel. And I like that just shows, you know, because she's a girl who hasn't had the privilege of using a wooden sword, like that's what she's excited for. Just shows perspective.
Yeah.
Like one person's wooden sword is another person's stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she also knows, I mean, maybe a simple thing for a Stark, but she knows the parts of a sword. I'm not sure if Sansa would know entirely.
No,
Oh, she might.
maybe.
Sansa knows
Yeah, I
things.
mean,
She knows
might.
things. Sansa's very smart, like her mom.
Besides, they might be parts of the songs she loves.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
I was gonna say really quickly, I love that throughout all of this, we have such a
Davos is a good dad.
Davos is a good.
Davos is a
yeah.
good dad.
Davos.
Yeah.
I was gonna say throughout all of this, like so far we've gotten a very clear image that Arya is not a ladylike young woman. But she insists that she is a girl. I don't think she ever once, that I can think of, resents the fact that she's a girl. I don't think she ever says, I wish I was born a boy.
Which is what
When
Cersei
you
does
think,
later.
yes, and Cersei, as we'll learn later, is always so upset that she was born a woman
Yeah.
and thinks that she should have been born a man. And I think it's interesting the way that those two work within the confines, quote unquote, of their gender. Like Arya decides, well, I'm a girl, but I'm gonna act like a boy anyway. But then Cersei, who, she wishes she was born a man, but she still, she uses her gender to her advantage. Like, she understands that, sex is a weapon for her, and she uses her womanliness to kind of get it. So I think I like the contrast of those two.
Yeah, that's super
interesting. Because they
interesting.
both clearly have issues with the genitalia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting comparison.
Yeah, because Arya doesn't just wish she was a boy; she just wishes girls could do what they.
I think
exactly.
you
She
can-
wishes that she, being a girl, could do things boys could do, but Cersei wants to just be a boy.
You could do a whole reading comparing them.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
My last point I want to make about this chapter, we talk about the importance of swords a lot. When Arya says needle wouldn't break, and then Ned says it has a name, doesn't it? And then that's kind of what changes his mind. The fact that this is a sword that has a name and that Arya has put so much importance on the sword.
Yeah.
That then he goes into comparing her to Lyanna and just the whole thing of that shifts his whole perspective on it. And I think that that's something really important to think about. Like, Ned is so attuned to that tradition that's something that piqued his interest. So that just stood out to me, something that I really enjoyed.
And I bet too that if this was his POV, we would get so much of the guilt that he feels that Arya doesn't have her wolf anymore, and especially seeing that she's named a sword. He's like, I can't take away another thing that she's latched onto and is given
That's
a
a good
name.
point. I just wanted to point out that on 2:19, when Arya spun around with needle in her hand, "You better not come in here," she warned. She slashed at the air savagely. It reminded me of Robb earlier. When he was just waving his sword around like, It's just like these kids playing with their swords. Guys, you gotta take it more seriously than that.
And I like how she trusts her father so much that when she knows that it's him, she immediately opens it. Even there's no between the door conversation, negotiation, and she's even still holding the sword.
Yeah, she forgets to hold the
Yeah.
sword. Yeah, or she forgets to put away the sword.
Yes, Syrio is a Barbosi. Someone was asking.
Yes, I always like seeing which characters are from the different free
But
cities.
that also, yes, I'm glad you brought that up because that also ties into my
Is it
reading
two
of
Vs?
the.
No, just
No.
one.
It also ties into my reading of that line where, boy, girl, you're nothing but you are a sword. Especially considering what happens when shit goes to Bravo. Okay.
One last fact I'd like to point out is Arya's left-handed. This comes into play.
Oh, I love
with
that.
other
Yeah.
stuff.
No wonder she's so reckless and wild. Those
Yeah.
left-handers.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
Watch out for
lefties.
them.
It was not a fun time to be left-handed back in
Probably
the
not. She
Never.
probably went through some painful
The old
stuff.
days.
Scepter.
No one's opened up the leftorium yet.
All right, are we on to Daenerys 3?
There's 3.
Yeah.
Exciting. This
Love
was
this
a good
chapter.
Daenerys chapter. I
Yeah.
loved
There was a
it.
lot of cool stuff in this
So
one.
much cool stuff.
Brief plot summary. Dany is riding with the Khalasar. She reflects on the beginning of her trip, which was not so good. But she gets stronger. She pushes Viserys and makes him walk. And talks with Jorah. So I always like chapters that, you probably all know this by now, that explores the geography and the history. And because Dany is our only eyes on Essos, I really like that we get all this painting a picture of all of Essos. I want to bring up a map. I always want to and forget. One day I'll start to do that. But just like the rolling hills of Norvos and then the tumbled ruins of a vast dead city, I think that's Salahor, or that's there's a whole history behind that one line, this vast dead city with the ghosts moaning among blackened marble columns. That used to be an empire in Essos. It has a whole backstory. And the Forest of Qohor. I just love all this stuff that we get before we even get to the Dothraki Sea. And then there was a little bit of history, and where was that? That was about the Doom, I think. Oh,
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
and it's we get a lot of talk about the Shadowlands beyond Ashai. That's where the first dragons had come from, and this mythology about the moon being an egg. This actually plays into some serious theories. The fact that there's this myth that there used to be a second moon in the sky,
but that it cracked from the heat of wandering too close to the sun and 1,000 dragons poured forth. Like there's a bunch of theories about like that was a meteor shower that like caused an extinction event.
I love the geological analysis of Westeros. There's so much stuff online if you guys are interested of looking into like the geological like likelihood of some sort of scientific event causing doom and it being, you know, exaggerated by magic, but still being rooted in like science that you can see geological evidence of in the descriptions of the world and things like that. It's really interesting if that's something that you're into, if you want to take a more scientific approach to it.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm like, nope, magic.
but it's also great how it works its way into the mythology that the characters then they themselves have. It's great.
We get a lot of Jorah in this chapter. I had just recently listened to the Radio Westeros episode about Jorah, so I was paying a little extra attention to him in this chapter, and the way that he kind of shifts his allegiance to Dany over Viserys, and of course Dany pointing out, which will be many, many times she will point it out, that Jorah is not a handsome man.
Yeah, he's not, like, take
He's
the
not Ian
image
Glenn.
you have from the show and just cast it aside.
Yeah.
He
This is not Ian
like
Glenn.
that. I still imagine him, though.
I imagine the voice.
good.
I've managed to like work
Yeah.
this weird, hideous Jorah picture into my head when I read these, but the voice is
Stockier,
still,
balder, hairier.
yeah,
I still can't lose the Game of Thrones show image yet.
yeah.
Yeah,
trying
well,
to.
he's so good. That's
Yeah,
part of
I
the
know.
problem.
Yeah.
Listening to the audiobook helps a little bit, but when I read the book, I'm just like, oh, no, it's back.
Yeah.
I know.
His little quote about the ghost grass, I think, is so cool.
Yeah, I
more
love that.
mythology about.
All right, I want
Can
to
we just talk
the
about
ghost-
that?
Yeah,
we don't want to.
He brings up the lands beyond Shai, and there's there's ghost grass taller than a man on horseback, pale as milk glass, ghost grass, and that when it covers the world, all life will end. And I was thinking when I read this, is this just a perversion of the others?
That's what, yeah.
Because they're described as being tall and pale, and when they cover the world, all life will end.
Taller than a man on a horse.
Yeah.
It murders all of their grass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
So I just
interesting.
wonder.
with the spirits of the damned.
Exactly.
That's cool.
So I just wonder, is this just a reinterpretation by a different culture of a myth that's traveled so far?
Yeah,
Because we have in Ashai and in the East, there's a version of the wall.
they're forts.
Yes.
I
so-
forget when that comes up in the series.
Later.
Probably the
Erica,
fifth
was it Erica? I was just about to make that point. It could also be the image of grass being covered in snow.
Oh, sure.
If winters come and it's the long winter, the entire world will be covered in snow, which will look a lot like ghost
That's
grass.
great.
Especially if it's in the Far East, where it's more lower parallel lateral.
Yeah.
It's a lower lateral. They might not know snow.
Yeah. Well, the Dothraki probably don't have a word for snow.
They're probably scared of snow.
Right.
Well,
So
maybe not. The
they would
horses could-
but
the
they would
horses could eat
compare it to a grass because it covers the ground.
And they compare most things to grass. And
Right.
horseback
So
riding.
Yeah.
there's a few different interpretations of this, which is really interesting. I think it's cool to look at the world through the eyes of the Dothraki because they filter everything through their own culture
Yeah,
in such a specific way.
as most cultures do.
Right.
Yeah.
But theirs is so defined and comparatively, I don't want to say primitive. I guess.
Yeah, it's just their frame of reference is so different than like what we're used to.
Yeah,
like
they're nomads.
Westeros-
They're horsemen.
Yeah, Westeros, I feel like it feels more familiar to us because it's very, I don't know, it's like European history, which is like, I feel like is something more people are familiar with because it's just depicted more often.
Sure.
In like books, movies, whatever.
Yeah.
But then when you have this Dothraki culture, it's so, yeah, their frame of reference is just different. I don't necessarily know if it's more primitive. It's just they have so many different things to like refer to. It's just a different filter.
Yeah, and like Westeros, we can relate to them because I don't think that they have any ideas in their myths about when the world will end and that it will end. But the Dothraki are perfectly accepting of the idea of their people's time, like their individual people, but also their entire people, and the world's time is finite. And
That's really compared to like the long summer.
Oh, just compared to that. But like they're okay with an existential threat to the world, making. I mean, it fits with death being more a part of their lives.
Oh.
They're not in denial.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah, they're much more willing to die, seems like.
Yeah.
I mean, if the wedding has 3 deaths.
Yeah,
and the world's gonna
like,
be covered in grass
dying at
anyway.
their weddings. And then, like, you know, death for them is their riding eternal.
Is that what it is?
Well, basically. I didn't mean to go Mad Max on accident, but yeah.
We get a little bit of Magister Illyrio's plans here, and seeing as I just listened to the Radio Westeros episode.
Guys, if you are rereading the series and have gone through the books already and have not listened to Radio Westeros, go listen to Radio Westeros.
We can't recommend it enough. And if this is your first read through, like poor little Joel here, don't do it.
Don't do it.
It'll spoil things so much. But think of it as this delicious dessert for when you're done with the books. It'll open your mind to so many things. But I think in light of that, it's important to know. Just always keep an eye on Illyrio. He's going to come up a lot in this book.
Yes.
And then he'll be dormant for a while. But he was urging Viserys to wait in Pentos and tried all his might to do it. But of course, Viserys was not having it and lays a hand on his borrowed sword. And I like that Illyrio just blinks at that and wishes him good fortune. It's like, okay, good luck.
Good fortune in dying with the Horse Lords.
Yeah.
Where do we see Illyrio on the show?
That's
right on the second
show,
page.
did you say?
No.
Oh, 227. Yeah,
Okay.
This is Dany's first affirmation to herself of not a queen, a Khaleesi. Yes? Or
think so.
Have we gotten that before?
She might have. Well, I love the structure of this chapter. I like where we're starting, and then we kind of track back to see where she's gotten this confidence from. So it's the first time that we're seeing it. It might have happened sooner.
This memory is real rough. Her recollection of these first nights. With the
so it turns out that Joel and I's and Lizzie's reading of her first night with Drogo may have been a little premature.
Maybe.
I think it was an accurate reading of what was happening
At
with
the
the caveats of age and consent and overall power in that relationship still being true.
We bought into the
romance.
We bought into the romance of it pretty hard.
With the 13-year-old girl and the 30-year-old guy.
It's
he's like 28.
But it's why I don't, and I don't want to talk too much about show stuff, but it's why I didn't mind the change in the show. And because the actors have said when they were filming that scene, they did initially script it like it was in the books.
And it didn't work?
And the actors were like, this feels wrong, especially knowing
I didn't
what
know
comes.
that.
Yeah, so that's why they changed it, is because both the actors were like, this doesn't feel right for where we are emotionally with these characters.
And especially when, like you said, you get this paragraph where every night he comes in and, I mean, this is marital rape.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's no denying it now.
Yeah, because she's crying. She doesn't want this. And he does it anyway and then goes to sleep. Like this is not a fun passage to read. It gets worse. There are some passages later, especially next book, that we're going to give trigger warnings.
We'll definitely
sure.
content warning.
Yeah.
All that. We
Yeah.
should have for this. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, so gone is that kind of communicative, consent-seeking Drogo.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why it happened originally in the books, if this is the direction it takes, but this makes sense for who the Dothraki are.
Liz is asking what's with Viserys' sexual feel of Dany as her punishment.
I don't think that's sexual. I think it's just inflicting pain.
I don't think it's sexual as in he's getting off on it, but I think he is knowing
It's a violation.
It's what's the term? It's just like sexual power over her. It's
in this chapter, or
yeah, it's later before.
And it calls back to him grabbing her nipple.
Yeah. I don't think Viserys is doing this because like he's like getting horny over it. I think he's doing it as a way to humiliate her.
I think it's because he recognizes that her body is what he's marketing to these people.
Yeah.
And I think it's a possession thing. I think that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, I think that, and that's his kind of thing. Like, he knows that that's something that hurts her.
Yeah, why doesn't he just slap her instead? It's more humiliating if it's of a sexual nature.
But this is the last time he does it because Dany finally stands up to him.
I think too, it's because think about it, the only other person who's allowed to touch her like that is Drogo. And I think,
true.
And I think he is really sensing, especially at this point, that he's losing control over the Khalasar, and they're not going to invade anytime soon. So I think it's maybe just him exerting some power and putting his hands where literally only Khal Drogo can. And I think it's like the only place where he's like, I can exert some power here, some dominance.
Yeah.
You know.
I do like that before Dany says aloud all the horrible things about Viserys, that she's like finally vocalizing after having subconsciously realized all her life. Just every description of Viserys is of incompetence. I underlined so many words. Stumbling, struggled, he reins his horse up too hard, he's soiled and stained. Like, this guy sucks so much. Like, crying incoherently, struggling for breath, sprawling again. So many. He was a pitiful thing. Finally, after all those, it's just like out and said, he was a pitiful thing. He had always been a pitiful thing. Why had she never seen that before? And there was a hollow place inside her where her fear had been.
Yeah.
This chapter is great for Dany's transformation.
We also get a mention on the previous couple pages on 227. She says, not until she rode her silver had Daenerys ever felt like a princess. So she's making explicit these, or George is making explicit this change in her that we saw begin when she first rode her horse. You guys were gone, right, for that? Yeah,
maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
But we talked about at the time how that moment when she rides the horse is such a big turning point for her.
Yeah. It's her finding something that gives her strength.
And now she's so connected to the Dothraki, where the horses are so important. I think it's important that to note how that extension of her riding her horse, her finding that freedom in the horse, now making Viserys walk, taking away his horse. That's she connects those things now, not just because of the Dothraki, but she has a personal connection to it. And I think that she's taking away Viserys' freedom in a way that is very personal to her, and it also extends to the culture that she's living in.
I find it a little bit so. This chapter is all about her journey from, or I guess adjusting to this new life she's in and adjusting to the pain of it, and also taking more ownership over it and finding power in that. But definitely I was aware of her, yes, she is a part of this culture now and she has a place in it, but she's not of the culture. And some lines like, these plains were a part of them and of her now, rang a little bit false, in that I wonder if we're going to see later that the Dothraki push back against that, because she's finding herself in this other culture, but she's not of them. She's been out here a month.
But she's adapting to it so well, like she doesn't name her horse.
She is adapting.
Like, it's just her silver.
And she has her cause, who follow her and respect her enough. They essentially, I mean, she pushes Viserys away, and I have every faith that if Dany wanted to, she could kick Viserys' ass.
Yeah.
I don't know, physically?
If he's a frail, he's like 16?
Yeah, but she's a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah, I know, but the fact that she stood up to him would be enough, I think, to put him back on his feet where she could take him.
I don't know about that.
I just don't have any faith in Viserys as a fighter.
Dude, a 16-year-old boy, especially the way they're described here, like Robb and them, is
yeah, Robb and Jon, but not Viserys. Viserys is described
Jon is
as
probably
frail.
of equal physical
I
statures.
disagree. He's like,
He
Jon's
wouldn't be
well fed
trained,
and
but-
exercises.
But Viserys is cruel. I think he would just not even care about.
Okay.
He wouldn't even have the
I'm
conscience.
trying to stand up for Dany. But in any case, her cause come and save her, and they show her respect. They
It's,
call her Khaleesi,
Jogo.
who becomes her kind of like biggest supporter.
Yeah, I think that I always like, especially on my read-through,
Viserys is in his early 20s. You're right. Never mind.
Yeah. Targaryen Fight Club. That's right, Gunner. Let's get it going. I just want to make sure that we point out the Dothraki as individuals, because I think the first read-through, it's really easy to just be like, okay, there's Daenerys and Khal Drogo and the Dothraki. But I like to really pay attention to who's doing what. So just as a note for the future, Jogo is the one with the whip who stops Viserys. And he's like, do you want me to kill him? So that's kind of cool. And then Quoro also is in defense of her, saying that she should take an ear of Viserys.
Yeah.
Just a little thing. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just something I noticed really quickly. So most of this chapter is, I mean, they address that walking is a great shame.
Yeah.
And how it's like you're less than a person.
Mm-hmm.
But then this, I think, is interesting. She had a sudden urge to feel the ground beneath her, to curl her toes in that thick black soil. And she, like, gets off her horse and goes and walks around barefoot. I don't know. I think that's interesting.
But that's when she's attacked.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And she also doesn't do that until she's alone. She's ridden away
Yeah,
from
that's
everyone. She
true.
doesn't let
Right.
anyone see that.
I
I like the imagery that we get of how the Khalasar moves when Jorah's talking about how he won't get lost because they have a vanguard up top and they have like outriders in the back.
Yeah.
And like they'll come across them. It just really paints a good image of the Khalasar moving.
And how
across the
how
land.
she talks about how she wants to ride up front so she can see new lands unspoiled
Yeah.
because
before
once
they
they ride
trample it.
through, they're destroyed essentially.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And for me, that's a great image. I think it's still great that she's feeling more power, but if she were truly a part of the Khalasar, she wouldn't care that the land's been spoiled now. I think it's definitely a part of her privilege that she gets to be at the front of that and gets to see the land as it is.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that we're defending her and you're pointing out all of her flaws.
know.
No, I
I'm
don't
s-
think he's saying that she's flawed. He's just saying that she's not fully acclimated into the culture, which
Yeah.
I think is a fair point.
And
Sure.
she's
I'm
never
just
gonna be
seeing.
full Dothraki.
Yeah, and this is the second time I'm reading this chapter because I read it initially before we got started with book club, and I love that she's seeing the lies of her old life and finding new strength.
Yeah.
But I do see it as a little, not like, I don't know, maybe it's problematic, but she isn't Dothraki, and I don't like the way she so identifies herself. But if her old identity did not give her any strength, I understand where she's coming from.
Top of 233, Jorah pulls up his horse and looks at Daenerys and is like, "Truth now." I wrote real talk. Real talk, Dany. You really want Viserys on the throne? And just below that, we get more of Magister Illyrio's plans. He is encouraging Viserys to come home to Westeros because he's saying that people are sewing dragon banners and praying for him to return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and Jorah's like,
So right now we know that Illyrio wants Viserys to come to Westeros.
I want to point out one more thing about Viserys before we get into that, because I
Sure.
want to talk
Oh,
about
that's
that.
it.
I want to
That's all I
talk
had
about
to say.
that section.
Oh, okay.
Viserys points out, or he says to Jorah, "Hit her, Mormont, hurt her," and that's something that we get later from another shitty king.
Oh yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Good her.
Yeah.
But going off of that conversation with Jorah, James, which I think is really important, after the Dragon Banners thing, Jorah says, "The common people pray for rain, healthy children, and the summer that never ends. It is no matter to them if the High Lords play their Game of Thrones. They said the title of the book! So as long as they are left in peace," and then he gave a shrug, "they never are." So that's furthering your point earlier, Joel.
Stating it explicitly.
Stating it explicitly. There you go. And then she asks, "What do you pray for, Sir Jorah?" And he says, "Home." And she says, "I pray for home too." And then Jorah says, "Look around you then, Khaleesi," implying that she is home. This is the best home that she's ever known. But
to Joel's point, she doesn't agree.
right.
But and then following that, supporting that idea, she doesn't see it as home. She immediately thinks of King's Landing, the Red Keep, Dragonstone. And I think this is a really interesting turning point where she starts seeing the Seven Kingdoms as something that she would want to go to, and it wouldn't just be her brother's idea.
228, Dany has a dream, and Dany's
that
dreams
dream.
are usually important. This is a pretty short one, but it's just, let's see, there was only her and the dragon, no Viserys, and the dragon's scales are slick with her blood, and she walks into flames, and there was no pain. She felt strong and new and fierce. So nothing like crazy that we can read a ton into, especially knowing what's going to happen. But just, it's more foreshadowing. It's just showing that her dreams.
I want to point out two things connected to that dream. First, it's called a dragon dream.
Yep.
Which that phrasing could become important later. And then on the next page, kind of going off of that same point, the horse seemed to know her moods as if they shared a single mind.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something, if you're either in a reread or even if this is your first time through, maybe make note of that for later use.
I also like the idea that, either way, knowing or not knowing what's going to come later, you could view her dream as her subconscious just resolving the problem that she has in her life of, she's at that point on the point of suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, terrifying.
Yeah.
But I think that her mind is essentially just, again, going back to the story she's been told about who she is, her identity, giving her strength, but also I think knowing what's to come, there's also some magic and prophecy in there, possibly.
It is known.
Oh, I want to talk about it is known.
Really?
That phrase bothers me now.
Whoa.
What?
Well, do you want to get into it?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of dragons, because there's a lot to talk about dragons with her handmaidens
So
that I think
much.
is really important. But what are you? What's
Yeah,
your
what's
take
okay.
Beef with it is
So-
known. What?
The way they use it is known was so annoying to me because the two Dothraki girls are talking about,
Iki and Jiki.
is that what their names are?
Eerie and
Eerie and
Cheeky.
Cheeky, so-
They're not like Disney
Icky and
sidekicks.
Cheeky. Oh man.
Eerie and Jiki, my bad.
Yeah, they laugh at
Doria,
Doria
who's from Lycian. Or
from
Lyce.
yes.
Lyce.
They call her a foolish straw-head slave,
Yeah.
just because she tells a story from her culture about what the moon is. And they're like, moon is not an egg, moon is God.
But the
Woman,
Dothraki
wife of Sun, it is known.
are not accepting at all of other cultures.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just a demonstration of them being, they know what their world is. They have no curiosity about other cultures.
No.
Like this is what we have and that's it.
It is known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes along with the, I think, thing, with the idea of your world and knowledge being finite.
Well, I think that can go. You can use that kind of worldview, I think, to justify how the Dothraki haven't advanced as a culture.
For sure.
Compared to the other cultures in the world that have very varying degrees of advancement technologically and scientifically.
Yeah.
You have this more primitive culture, and I think that worldview is a big part of why that is.
They remind me a lot of the Greyjoys.
Oh, yeah.
Greyjoys
Like,
are very
we do
set in
not
their way.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would get along.
They too haven't advanced any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just take stuff.
Yeah. Like their naval technology is very limited
Yeah.
compared to others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
In the
that-
books.
Yeah. I like that the handmaidens, or the Dothraki handmaidens at least, really emphasize dragons as being terrible beasts and they're all gone and good. Good brave men killed them. And honestly, they're not wrong. I know we like dragons because, obviously we get the POV of Daenerys but when you think about it, and this is a very I think this is not super subtle on George's part. I think he's even confirmed that this is kind of what he's going for. Dragons are nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're. I mean, it's weird because we like Daenerys, we trust her, we know she's a good character, but dragons, I don't know, in the wrong hands, that's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the lack of any kind of technological advancement, there's a great video on YouTube by, I think it's Nerdwriter, you guys should check out, talking about how dragons stall any kind of technical advancement. That he makes a point in comparisons to a lot of real-world examples about how a lot of advancement in science and medicine was driven by warfare. And when you have a power as great as dragons, you don't need any kind of advancement in your warfare technologies. So that helps explain why the world has existed for thousands of years and they still don't have any kind of Renaissance or Enlightenment phase in their development as a people. It's a great video. You guys should check it out. All his content is great.
Yeah, and any technology that you're going to try and develop against a dragon, you're not going to be able to develop it as fast as a dragon's going to grow. It's impossible. I mean, they don't stop growing. They only stop growing if you can find them.
They're like
Goldfish.
Yeah, pretty much. Or
that-
koi fish.
Wait, you could have a giant
You
goldfish.
could- yeah,
That's
goldfish
it's
can
a
get huge.
carp essentially.
People who keep goldfish in little bowls, you're not supposed to do that. It's
Yeah.
very cruel.
That's what a
You're
koi
stunting
pond
its
is.
growth.
Yeah.
little tidbit of history here. The last Targaryen dragons died a century and a half ago during the reign of Aegon III, called the Dragonbane. So, Aegon III, Dragonbane. He was all right. Kind of dealt a bum hand. Wasn't really his fault that those last few dragons died.
Magic had died in the west when the doom fell on Valyria.
More of that, yep. And then name drops of the Jade Sea, Yee-Tee.
And
There's just like, if you're into maps and stuff like I am, if you look at a map of the known world of Westeros and you see how far away Yee-Tee is, and I think George has said we'll never go there, but it's like, I just want to go there.
Yee-Tee's a world where I'm really bummed that we'll never get to see on this show because I just want to see what they would do.
It's China.
Oh, essentially.
It'd be so beautiful.
It'd
be so pretty.
So cool.
And we're never gonna see it.
A bunch of slave stuff. Which is always important for Dany. There was a slave earlier in the chapter, I forget where, but on her last page 236, she tells Doria to stay with her, and Doria lowers her eyes when they're alone. "You honor me, Khaleesi," she said, "but it was no honor, only service." And it's just like, she can't say no.
Yeah.
She's a slave.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's not as direct a comparison to Arya as you can make because she is a slave, but it was interesting to me to think about Dany's relationship with those serving her versus Arya's relationship, and how Dany seems to already understand that they might have some conversations she could have with friends with her servants, but they're not friends.
I want to talk about
Knittable, what are you asking? Where did they talk about what? Let us know and I'll try to answer you. Go ahead.
She goes and she takes Drogo out into the grass.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
outside sex.
Yeah, outside sex, evidently cowgirl.
There you go.
But she says, and this really stood out to me, it was nothing to her. Now, how did you guys read this line? Because
I might have overlooked that.
Did you guys miss this?
Where's
okay, so it's the second to last paragraph of the chapter that starts, "There is no privacy."
Sure.
So there's no privacy in the heart of the Khalasar. Dany felt the eyes on her as she undressed him, heard the soft voices as she did the things that Doria told her to. It was nothing to her. So there's a way to read this as being outside and having everybody watch her was nothing to her. However, I think there's another layer to this, and I wonder if having sex with Drogo is nothing to her.
I don't know about that. I think
you don't think that this is this is her taking control, and she's kind of close your eyes and think of Englanding this a little bit?
I mean, I think that's part of it. I don't know. Yeah, it never says anything about her pleasure at this part.
Right.
Yeah, I think she's determined to get a kid.
I think in this instance, yeah, I think this is purely like a power play and...
But this is something she comes back to later in her arc as like an important memory, like the night that she conceived. So...
But, I mean, it's its own sentence. It was nothing to her.
Yeah.
But then it's like, was she not Khaleesi? His were the only eyes that mattered. So it's cushioned between people looking and then also people looking.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up because it was nothing to her is such a specific, simple sentence,
Sure, that's fine.
And the way that she casually is like when Jeque's like, "Khaleesi, you're with child," and she just flatly is like, "I know."
I know, bitch.
But it's also, it's not coming from a place of, we haven't gotten any groundwork laid in this chapter where there's pressure put on her to conceive a child, to bring an heir yet. It's not done out of any obligation or fear for herself. She's making an active choice, and the only groundwork we see laid is that she views Westeros as home, and I think it's a powerful moment where she's taking control and thinking about going there.
Yeah, I wonder if also part of it is because she knows how much of a duty she has to conceive a child, is that once everyone knows that she's pregnant, they saw her take that control, and I think maybe that gives her a little leverage, and like, I was part of this. She's not just like a vessel for Khal Drogo's kid.
Yeah.
She's like, she...
This happened because of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think she's smart enough to understand that.
She's very smart.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's a big part of that too.
It was her 14th name day.
Yeah.
So as far as her age goes, I really think it's hard. I don't think we can think of her as a 13-year-old girl would be in our culture. I realize that like culture in the real world doesn't necessarily negate the biological like maturity and the wrongness, but this is a fantasy world, and I'm not convinced that a 13-year-old girl in this story, in this world, is different than, say, a 16-year-old girl in our culture. I don't know.
I also think of it too, and maybe
I think that's a pretty decent comparison.
Right?
this is the way that I get through this because it does bug me. The years in Westeros are different anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
What are
that's
these years?
true.
She
could
she
be
could
like
be
17.
older.
Danny's a 30-year-old woman in American
yeah.
time.
So just think of it that way, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I
Unless
don't know.
puberty acts weirdly too.
That totally reconciles a lot of things.
Wait, does it though?
Yeah, no,
It
because
does,
like
but puberty,
Doing stuff in Earth years.
but puberty and when
But if
a
when
woman
they leave-
Yeah, I know,
leads,
but
that,
if a year is longer, so if, I'm not saying that she's like 22, but if she's like 16,
Or
like,
like
because they
even
talk about how Rob is like 15 and has a full beard. Like, so, like, and there were dudes in
They're
high school who
hardy
had
up
full
north,
beards.
yeah.
But like, if it extends things a couple years, it makes a little bit more sense.
I just think I think that despite, I don't know how to treat it, but I don't think treating it as thinking of a 13-year-old girl you know right now and comparing her to that is the right way to go
And
about it.
I don't think
know.
think that we're supposed to just give it a pass and be
No.
like it's
No,
a different culture.
that's-
Like George is
He
doing this
regrets it.
on
Yeah.
purpose, though. I
For
think
sure.
to make us uncomfortable.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
George himself has said he regrets making all those characters so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think especially with that, the best way to read these stories is the canon is what's on the page and from the author's mouth.
Yeah,
Yes.
Caitlin made the really good point that this is not a comparison to, like, this is a fantasy novel, fantasy literature. We're not supposed to make comparisons directly to the real world. Like, this is its own world. And if anything is its own world, this world is its own world. Like, we should look at things a little bit differently. And I think, Chelsea, that's a great point. Like, your time is different.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's going to be a huge difference.
No,
That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
it is, if she's
And
13
16,
versus 16 is
that's
a
a
pretty
huge
big
difference,
Well-
which would make Jon and Rob like 17.
well, also it reminds me of like when you realize how old Disney characters are supposed to be and it freaks you out.
Yeah.
It's
Same
like when
thing.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
Ariel's 16.
Yeah.
But they're clearly, you know,
Like
she's-
Jasmine's what, like 14, 15?
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
they're
socialization
all,
is
I
so
just
much
don't
different.
Even think about it.
Mhm.
And to
Yeah.
me, they're all like in their 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think of
So,
show
it's like
ages
that.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Sure.
Except
So-
for like when it really matters, like with Tommen.
Yeah.
I think that's the only
Tommen's
one
a
where it's
little
like,
weak.
oh, the show is clearly a different character based on age.
Yeah.
But we have 4 more chapters
Oh, yeah,
to
we
get through,
need to
so
move.
let's
do
get
it.
to Bran 4. This is the first Bran chapter we've had since he's woken up. I love this chapter because we get the Long Night, one of the most important passages regarding the Long Night and the White Walkers, delivered by Old Nan herself. And then we get Tyrion arriving and a lot of fun stuff between him and Robb the Lord, who's being a bit of a douche here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't-
Oh yeah, you're such a Rob fanboy. How do you reconcile this
I
one?
can't. I'm
He's
like,
such-
God damn it, Rob kind of sucks. I do
Yeah.
I do think he's had a lot of things put on him,
He's
Yeah.
and he
trying.
doesn't know how to deal with
He
it.
doesn't. He's acting the way he
And
thinks
like
he's
at
supposed
at
to.
the end of the chapter when he's talking to Bran and he's crying,
Yeah.
and like that's like that's so real of a response from him, and he only lets himself do that in front of Bran.
Yeah.
And I think that's because that's the only family he really has. Rickon's whatever.
Yeah, Rickon's whatever.
And Catelyn's gone. So, and obviously Ned is gone. So I think that Bran is having a lot is put on Robb, but I think a lot is put on Bran here too. And
Yeah.
Bran handles it better than Robb does.
But Rob is under immense pressure, and I wouldn't have minded. I know that we don't get one, but seeing a Rob point of view chapter when he's, isolated and having to go to all these meetings, essentially running Winterfell, going off to distant holdfasts, it's said. So he's having to do all these things and not having many allies
what are you looking
who to
for?
confide in. He has to kind of be this person the entire time.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's Robb the Lord. I love that. The stern face of Robb the Lord. The voice of Robb the Lord. Robb the Lord just has all these different attributes.
Yep.
And Robb the Lord bears his steel for a highborn guest. Like,
Yeah.
Come on, Robb.
But
yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
But he's being influenced by Catelyn here.
Yeah.
Because think of what the knowledge that he has
Yeah.
right now of the Lannisters. His dad doesn't like them. Mom doesn't like them.
He doesn't know about, like, the dagger being
he does.
Tyrion's.
No, he does.
He does.
He doesn't know about the dagger being Tyrion.
No. But he...
Wait.
Because Catelyn is like, think for a second, like someone tried
Yeah.
to kill Bran.
So I guess he's guarded.
I think,
so.
I mean,
He knows that that's a fancy dagger.
yeah.
You know?
Is that what Lewin whispers in his ear?
No,
Is
I think
he trying to get him to stay?
Lewin whispers like you need
Tyrion?
to treat him better.
Yeah, because Lewin is very respectful to Tyrion throughout this
Yeah,
exchange.
he says you draw well, my lord. This is great. Like, and I also love Tyrion pointing out your bastard brother has all your father's graces. It would seem like Robb is very much his mother's child.
Yes, in
And
appearance, in most things.
yeah, and I think that Jon is the better kind of son of Ned.
Yeah.
Even though he's not.
Let's backtrack a little and go.
Sure. Well, I wanted to get all the Robb stuff out of the way.
Sure.
Old man.
Yeah, let's get to because everyone's talking about old man in the chat.
All right,
literally old
Hashtag
man.
old man.
And I
I
dibs
think
reading.
you gotta, yeah.
I dibs the reading.
Okay.
How far should I go? Because this
Don't
is
do it
You can
too
skip
much.
some, but you
Okay.
gotta get the last hero stuff at the
Okay,
end.
yeah.
that
this
gets
is-
cut off right at the good part.
But he knows the ending. It's okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
I want to hear it though.
so this is
Give
old.
a page.
This is 240 in the mass market.
Starting on the others.
Starting on, the others.
Yeah, this is final clarification that the White Walkers are the others, by the way. The others, old man agreed. Thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was cold and hard and endless beyond all memory of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castles, even as the swineherds in their hovels. Women smothered their children rather than see them starve, and cried, and felt their tears freeze on their cheeks. Her voice and her needles fell silent, and she glanced up at Bran with pale, filmy eyes and asked, "So, child, is this the sort of story you like?" Well, Bran said reluctantly, yes, only old man nodded. In that darkness, the others came for the first time. She said as her needles went click, click, click. They were cold things, dead things that hated iron and fire and the touch of the sun, and every creature with hot blood in its veins. They swept over holdfasts and cities and kingdoms, felled heroes and armies by the score, riding their pale, dead horses and leading hosts of the slain. All the swords of men could not stay their advance, and even maidens and suckling babes found no pity in them. They hunted the maids through frozen forests and fed their dead servants on the flesh of human children. There's more, but I don't want to sit here reading all day because,
I think you gotta talk about the last hero.
last hero. I'll just skip ahead to the middle of a 241 paragraph.
So is cold.
Yep, so as cold and death filled the earth, the last hero determined to seek out the children in the hopes that their ancient magics could win back when the armies of men had lost. He set out into the dead lands with a sword, a horse, a dog, and a dozen companions. For years he searched until he despaired of ever finding the children of the forest in their secret cities. One by one his friends died, and his horse, and finally even his dog, and his sword froze so hard the blade snapped when he tried to use it, and the others smelled the hot blood in him, and came silent on his trail, stalking him with packs of pale white spiders big as hounds. Hodor! That's what happens.
Yeah.
Love it. I love this stuff. This is more mythology and stuff about the White Walkers than we'll get for a long time in the books. And
Last hero.
Last hero is
Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just a big, important mythological event.
This is tough because there's a lot of stuff I want to bring up that is show stuff that I think it's stuff that we don't get in the books. But I think there's some really cool foreshadowing, and I can't.
Well, it's stuff that we haven't gotten in the books yet,
Yeah,
or
but
stuff that we
was
haven't
in
gotten
the
in the
show.
books. Sure.
So hypothetically,
I think it's okay.
really quickly, if you watch the show, I think this really stood out.
All
to
right.
me.
If you haven't watched the show,
Plug your ears. I
yeah,
guess.
give us a minute.
Turn off the sound for a
This
sec.
really stood out to me this time because this was a very popular theory after this season that a lot of people thought was silly. But now, after reading this, I think it's interesting.
Mm.
Thousands and thousands of years ago, Brandon the Builder had raised Winterfell, and some said the Wall. Bran knew the story, but it had never been his favorite. Maybe one of the other Brandons had liked that story. Sometimes Nan would talk to him as if he were her Brandon, the baby she had nursed all those years ago, and sometimes she confused him with his uncle Brandon, who was killed by the Mad King before Bran was even born.
Yeah.
She had lived so long, Mother told him once, that all the Brandon Starks had become one person in her head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That really stood out to me this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I did crap a little on that theory, but
There's also the mention in Ned's chapter of maybe he'll raise castles like Brandon the Builder.
Yeah.
So what is the theory there? That Bran becomes
That
every
Bran
Bran?
is Brandon.
Every
He
Bran.
gets reincarnated?
No.
But they're different
Time.
people. Like Brandon, his uncle was a huge hothead. He had the wolf's
Well,
blood.
Well, he's
Not
not
that
exactly
uncle.
there.
But like Bran the Builder,
he
the
can
mythological
influence them.
Yeah.
He can influence the other Brandons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because he doesn't actually appear in the
Yeah.
past.
He never
wouldn't be able to physically
he
alter
has
it.
yet, as far as we know, the ability to possess anyone.
Yeah, but
But he can influence things.
Yeah.
so yeah,
I
Bran
don't want
as
to talk
Bran
about
the
it too,
Builder.
but
Okay.
that
Yeah.
really, really stood out to me this time. And yeah, they're also.
Oh, are we done?
Oh, are we done?
I'm sorry.
There's
go
one
ahead.
other thing I want to talk
Spoiler
I know,
about.
there's
section.
something I
Sorry,
wanna
Okay.
talk
one
about
second,
too.
1 second.
There's also Jon as the last hero theories, and I think the mention of the sword and the dog are things that are very important when we talk about
Yeah.
who the last hero is, Azor Ahai Reborn, things like that. All these big legends that connect potentially to the Long Night coming, and with Jon potentially fulfilling that role. So that's one of the things that I wanted to point out as far as spoilery shit goes.
Yeah. There was it was in an earlier chapter, so I apologize, but it was a Bran chapter where Bran says something about where he thinks Uncle Benjen might have gone, and he.
Oh, he says that's at the end
It
of
is
this.
in this
Yeah,
chapter?
it's
Yeah.
at the end of this. He says when
Children
Yoren
of the
informs Robb that he's gone, he says the children will help him.
That's
the
how
children
the
of the
story
forest.
ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then knowing the show, well, there you go.
Well, that's a departure.
I know,
But still.
but maybe.
But yeah, it is interesting. And then, especially considering Jon's chapter, we get a little bit more information of Benjen's whereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or can we come
Yeah,
back?
yeah. We're
Yeah.
good.
Unmute. I hope they.
We need a better system for that.
Yeah, we need like a little just
A
sign
sign,
off.
yeah,
yeah.
And spoilers.
Show
Yeah.
spoiler.
Yeah.
Um,
we should. That's a good idea. We should do that.
Right, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, someone asked about Walder versus Willis. Yeah, the show
just
doesn't
rename
like
it.
to have characters have the same names,
Yeah.
just so it's less confusing. So Walder Frey, they changed it. That's why they changed Robert, John Aaron's son, to just Robin.
Robin.
I think it's still a
and
nickname.
Yara and Ara.
Yeah.
Asha.
Osha and Asha.
Osha and
Oh,
Asha.
Ocean.
Well, we're not there yet, but yeah.
But yeah, that's-
Names get changed on the show
Names
to be
get
less
changed.
confusing to filthy casuals, which none of you are if you're here.
Yeah.
Also, you're not filthy if you watch the show.
Well,
Your fans
I
all
mean,
the same.
we don't know the last time you bathed.
They're not Yoren.
Yeah, they're not Yoren. Yeah.
He's described in here as being sour smelling.
All right, I want to talk about Yoren real
Yeah?
quick because
Okay.
he said this line that I think is interesting. Even given just looking at what we've read so far. So he says up there, referring to Beyond the Wall, a man can't always tell what's alive and what's dead. So the senior members of the Night's Watch seem very aware that the others are out there,
Yeah.
that they're real, and that there are whites. But they're very cavalier about it.
Yeah.
Like, do they just think like, well, no one's gonna believe us and we're fucked anyway? So like,
I think it's. I
is
think
it
it's
a
not.
defeatist attitude?
I don't
or
think
what?
it's a monolithic belief among the Night's Watch. I think that
Yeah.
some people
but
believe in them.
But the most, as you were saying, the most important
Benjen
people.
knows,
Gior
Gior knows,
references it.
Yoren knows,
Well,
Sir Alistair knows,
Do we know that they know for sure?
Yoren knows, and Ben Stark knows.
I think Gior knows.
Gior
too.
knows.
Well, what's
Yeah.
the extent of their knowledge? Like, have they seen White Walkers?
I think
I
Yoren
don't
has.
think so.
I think Yoren has seen whites.
Okay.
I think that's the implication of this line, and I think Ben Stark has seen some shit.
Yeah.
But I think he's also the kind of guy who will just kind of like internalize that and just be like, I've seen some shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Is it because they have the wall and they're not such a threat yet that they aren't sending ravens all the time about this? Like, Jeor has a private conversation with Tyrion, but why isn't this?
I think the
thing?
implication of his conversation with Tyrion is that no one's going to take them seriously, and they need someone like Tyrion to plead their case.
Yeah, I think they also figure they have such trouble recruiting people anyway that if they're sending out ravens, like, guys, there's White Walkers, like, everyone's just gonna think they're crazy.
Yeah, it might be a practical
thing.
Yeah.
It's like bad PR.
Speaking of Yoren, I like that, like, on the same point, you have Robb, my uncle's not dead, loudly putting his hand on the hilt of his sword and then repeating it, screaming it. And then just old sour-smelling Yoren looked up at Robb unimpressed. Whatever you say, my lord.
Yeah.
So that gives us a sense of Yoren's, like, just, I don't know, practicality. He's a hard man. He's not going to be impressed by this. But when Bran is talking about the children of the forest, Yoren's like, well, up past the wall, who's to say? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Book Rob, I'm not sold on this guy so far. So far, he seems a little dumb, a little hot-headed for me.
He's definitely hot-headed.
He's hot-headed, and he shares Ned's naivety when it comes to certain things.
For sure, but you can definitely see how him and Jon got on so well.
Yeah.
Like, they share a lot of the same attributes, I feel like.
Yeah, Jon's just more aware, I think.
Yeah.
Self-aware of certain things. But even he, has his moments of blind spots.
Do we have much else to say about this?
Well, we haven't talked about Bran himself. This poor, despairing, isolated child. Like, it'd be.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it'd be one thing if he woke up without the ability to use his legs, but it's another thing that he wakes up without that and without so many members of his family that could have given him like stability. And it's very telling when he talks about how he feels as if everyone else has died, or maybe he died and they forgot about him.
Yeah, and especially, Catelyn sat with him for so long, and then she just happened to leave right before he woke up, and he blames her for it. You get that sense that he's angry at her for leaving him.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's interesting how kind of he's very much of his age. Things like the children will save him and stuff, but he's more perceptive than that, and I think this experience has changed him a little bit. Like, he's already more grounded, I think, than Robb is, where he understands that, like... What?
Well, he does know the ground pretty well.
I know, yeah, Joel and I just both, like... Yes.
Hey, guys, he will fly.
Yeah.
Will he?
Well, I
don't know, crows are all liars. Is that what old man says?
Oh, yeah, crows
Yeah.
are.
Which makes clear that he's told people his dream. He's not keeping it to himself.
I just love old man. I know a story about a boy who hated stories.
I love old man.
Old man's the best.
I want to point out, speaking of old man, her kin, Hodor.
Yes. Great-grandmother to Hodor.
And
but are we sure it just says she's kin to him? I wasn't sure what the relationship was, because it does say like all her grandchildren had died.
No,
right?
I think it's specified.
No, it's like her sons and like,
all that was left of her blood was Hodor.
Yeah.
I think Liz
it's a descendant,
pointed out.
and I think it's made more explicit later.
Bran wondered if he would shrivel up as small as his great-grandmother.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that Hodor carries her off to bed.
Yeah, and Hodor washes and dresses Bran with deft and gentle hands. Like, you really get the sense, talking about his physicality, how good of a warrior Hodor would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, he would have, given theories about his ancestry, like, he's so strong, but he's deft and gentle, and he's got an agility to him, and, we have this image of Hodor in the show as being this kind of, like, older, just big guy, but in the books, like everybody else, he's much younger. Yeah. And he has more vitality, I think, than we've seen in the show.
Oh yeah, he's like middle-aged in the show, right?
Yeah, he's like an older guy in the show, but he's like 20, late 20s, early 30s in the books.
Yeah.
And you really I think it's important connecting him with Bran, these kind of tragic figures that were crippled at a young age and didn't get to fulfill on their promise, or seemingly didn't get to fulfill on their promise.
The way that they were crippled is, in both cases, a mystery.
Yeah.
To everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. speaking of that mystery, Bran almost remembers what happened to him. He has this dream where he's climbing, and the shapes of gargoyles, perhaps once they've been lions, he must not listen, and then they come down and throw him off. And I can't remember if he eventually remembers what happened to him. I think he does. I don't know.
I don't remember.
Actually, I can't remember.
Because he almost remembers in the previous Bran chapter, he almost remembers, and the Crow's like, no, fuck it, forget it.
Oh, yeah. And so, like, obviously, subconsciously, he's trying to remember these dreams.
I like the way that, I think lesser writers, shitty fantasy novels would have dreams be not as dreams work, but this feels very much like the subconscious trying to reconcile a problem in the mind in this chapter, in the chapter with Dany too.
I do think George is very good at writing dreams. I think that he gives you just enough information to get across if you pick it apart, but they never feel, like you said, like totally coherent. And I think that that's something that's really important when you think about how we experience dreams.
And which is something that the show can't portray just by nature of being a visual medium.
Right.
So
sure,
you always got to give the show some leeway when it doesn't follow the prophecies and cool dream stuff that the books give us.
Yeah.
Also a little bit more history. Old Nan tells us about just the waves of people who came to Westeros. These were the days before the Andals came, and long before the women fled across the narrow sea from the cities of the Rhoyne. The woman who led the Rhoynish across the sea was Nymeria, the namesake of Arya's wolf, so that's there. And I just love the history. I'm sorry.
This is how Andals cross the narrow sea. This is how the Rhoynish cross the narrow sea.
It's the Westerosi stand-up.
I love that Tyrion gives Bran the blueprints.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk about Tyrion.
Yeah. Well, because
that's so important. I mean, we get that great line, I have a tender spot in my heart for cripples and bastards and broken things.
Classic Tyrion.
Classic Tyrion. I love it.
The wolves again attack Tyrion.
Yeah. He's already been attacked by ghosts.
Yeah.
And now by
what's up with that?
I don't know.
So I wondered whether it was them
Now,
being
like,
so
it's a
attuned
thing.
to their humans. Yeah, like, is it because they know that's why Bran fell, or is it sensing something about the future? Is it sensing Lannister blood in general?
I don't know, because no one
I
seems...
wrote that down. Or Targaryen blood.
Oh.
But then Jon would have it too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, because Bran has no ill feelings towards Tyrion, and Summer still lunges at him.
Rickon doesn't have feelings.
Yeah, but Rickon, Shaggy Dog can do whatever he wants. But, and Tyrion just, how interesting, in a flat voice. I don't quite know what to make of all these wolves attacking Tyrion.
That stood out to me too.
That's curious that you guys don't know.
What if his end comes to him from Nymeria? Just like, this is the seed, and like Tyrion will be walking through the Riverlands one day and just get his throat ripped out by
no one tells him
last
no.
scene of the book.
Yeah, and it just as he's laying there dying, those wolves never liked me.
If only there were a girl around to stay his tooth.
It might just be as simple as being symbolic of the Stark Lannister conflict.
It could be that.
The wolves are the Stark,
Yeah.
at their rawest form. They're like pure, unadulterated Stark, and
I
they sense
just think
Lannister.
it's interesting that it makes sense for if we had only been presented with this scene and it was Grey Wind and Shaggy and Summer to an extent, I'd say, oh, that's their owners.
Ghost
Ghost,
Yeah.
and he had already had a relationship with Jon, so I'm very I don't know, that really stood out to me though as something interesting.
I like that Tyrion doesn't let Robb slide with his douchey he was being.
Yeah, he's like, no.
Like Robb's like, sorry, I'm supposed to be better. We offer our hospitality, and Tyrion's like, no, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll go stay with some
already
boys.
failed.
Yeah. I like how Bran describes it as it was a speech he had learned, not words from the heart.
Yes, that describes Robb so much, not Ron. I don't know who Ron is. Okay.
Ron Weasley.
Any other notes on this Bran chapter? I liked it.
I got to pay more attention to Bran chapters because I glossed over a lot just out of.
Bro, we get so much cool stuff.
I know, but like until the reeds show up, it's just like.
So let's move on to the next chapter.
What? Oh God, you son of a bitch! James wrote in his book Littlefinger 2.
Little fingers.
Yep.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of Pycelle in this show.
There is a lot of Pycelle.
There's so much. I love, as a stylistic choice, I love that the conversation is a sentence, 1 or 2 lines from Ned, multiple paragraphs from Pycelle. That's just how it goes.
If you're listening to the audiobooks,
Oh no.
it just takes,
It's amazing.
It takes a long time, but I like it.
Yeah.
It's just the voice he uses for Pycelle is like, just slow.
Is it anything like, what's the actor's name? General Veers?
It's not really.
Oh,
it's weird.
God,
I
what is
think
his
the
name?
voices.
Julian
for,
Glover?
Yeah.
I think the voices for Pycelle and Varys in the audiobook should be switched.
Switched.
Oh, okay.
The one for Jorah is a little weird.
It is weird.
Based on show expectations. Like the way he's, like, if you picture Jorah saying, you know, in the show, when he's asked what he dreams of, he's like, home. And in the book, or in the audiobook, he says, home.
Yeah.
All right, I need to listen to these.
Um,
So we have Pycelle mentioning that there's, some conflict rising up due to the heat going on.
This is Detective Ned Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
For
the
sure.
procedural.
Shitty
like the
detective.
heat in King's Landing is such
Hard-boiled detective.
hard-boiled
Yeah.
detective.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
the heat of the city. Like tempers were high.
Speaking of just detective movie tropes, when Catelyn goes to seek Littlefinger's help, I just thought of like those scenes where it's like my husband. Littlefinger.
Littlefinger's like got his hat tilted down.
For sure.
That would be hilarious. Like a reenactment of that scene as as like a noir detective movie would be awesome.
It's been a long time, Kat.
Pycelle reiterating Tyrion's point about mines being like swords. The old ones go to rust. Better get that whetstone out.
He doesn't say, though, that he's using his. He's just like, well, it shits out as I get old. He's not doing his Sudoku.
Too bad.
I like the when he's reminiscing about Old Town and he's like, we used to walk by the gardens and argue about the gods. Like what young intellectual thing to do. Like that's such I remember walking by the Huron River and talking about like existence.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a maester
That's
thing
like
to do.
sophomore year of
Yeah,
college.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I'm in my first philosophy class thing.
Here's our shout out to Aegon the Unlikely.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Only in here it's called Aegon the Fortunate. That's Aegon the Fifth. And I guess I had forgotten this. Pycelle served for a few months under him as Grand Maester because
Page
he's been there. Oh, I'm sorry, 253, page 253, the third paragraph, I guess.
Okay.
And it's, Pycelle's been Grand Maester for 40 years. And so he was under Robert, Aerys before him, Jaehaerys before him, and then before him, Aegon the Unlikely. That's Aegon the Fifth.
I think it's interesting then to think about that. Pycelle wasn't at Summerhall.
That happened under Aegon the Fifth?
Yeah, that's where he died.
Oh, God, I always forget that that's how he
Explain what
died.
you're talking
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the tragedy, James and I are falling into a deep lore hole here. So Aegon the
Deal.
Fifth,
Sorry, go.
Good.
Aegon the Fifth died at the tragedy at Summerhall, which was the Targaryen summer palace.
Oh, okay. Where in Westeros is this?
It's it's the border of the Stormlands and the Reach, right? It's not far from Bitterbridge. I don't
thought
think.
it was in the Reach.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
think
probably west.
Yeah, west of King's Landing.
Yeah, for sure.
Where is it in relation to Hornhill?
Way east.
Okay.
Yeah. But there was a fire there where Aegon the Fifth and the Crown Prince, I think at the time, a bunch of Targaryens died.
Because he was messing with wildfire.
Oh, really?
He thought he could drink wildfire.
Not Aegon.
No, his son, Aaron Brightflame.
Yeah.
Thought he could drink wildfire, I think, and survive.
Turn into a dragon or some
he
shit,
thought he would
some
become a
crazy
dragon,
shit like that.
And it just started this huge
and
fire.
it wiped out, it
lot of
killed
Targs.
Aegon, it killed a lot of Targaryens, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting when we think about who Pycelle is as a character and his relationship to royalty, that he wasn't there.
Despite
Where
being Grand
a lot of Kingsguard were there, including Sir Duncan the Tall.
Oh, was that where he died?
Mhm.
Shit.
And a lot of other royal kind of people of court and retainers. all died in a fire.
They did die in a fire, Erica. The Targaryens are not fireproof.
Right.
The show appears to make Daenerys fireproof.
But that could be an extension of the magic in which she initially became fireproof.
I don't think the show.
I don't think that's across the board for Targaryens.
Someone point out Michael Gerald Jaehaerys not included in the show. That's true.
That is true.
When Maester Aemon gives Jon the history of his lineage, he skips over Jaehaerys, and it's so weird. The show's line of descent for the Targaryens is the exact same, except Jaehaerys, Aerys' father, is not included. It's a little weird. I don't know why they did that. I guess just to simplify. But yeah.
I wonder if they'll have to reckon with that.
So,
that's interesting given show.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're getting a correction.
Yeah.
Eric Mishima is saying no.
Aegon
V was trying to hatch dragon eggs.
Allegedly.
So that's probably what. Oh, was the Aaron Brightflame thing a separate incident?
I think that was.
I think you're right. Sorry. Thank you, Eric. Glad we have you here.
Yeah.
To help us out. Sorry. Continue.
For whoever it was, that incident is interesting. On the one hand, given that they decided, oh, this is a great technology, let's keep developing it. It can end horribly for the king and the prince.
Dragons, you mean?
Wildfire.
Oh, yeah.
A whole house can just go up, or castle.
Sure. Well, that aside, there's a lot of other mystery stuff that happens here.
Before we get onto that, just on 253, since we're there, we get a pretty cool mention of poisoning, and Pycelle responds, "We are not the free cities where such things are common." And that made me think of the Faceless Men.
Oh, okay.
And the poisonings.
Yeah, well, that's part of the whole mystery. I mean, this is Ned trying to suss out the nature of Jon Arryn's demise, and he just can't believe that he died in such a way. Ned suspects poison. He thinks it was the Lannisters, and he's trying to figure out. Yeah. I mean, he's flat out like,
you're not
he's
being very
trying
subtle.
to prove that it's Cersei. He has his mind made up. Cersei did this, and he's trying to.
And Pycelle trying to lead him to Varys.
Yep.
And it's a good thing for Pycelle that Ned has this weird
distrust
thing against Varys. Something about Varys that made his flesh crawl. I think it's just the fact that he's a eunuch. And Ned's he's not a man's man, right? Yeah. Like, that's the sense I get.
I don't
he's
know.
this perfumed...
I think he also distrusts him for being a spy.
I think that's mostly it. He's like, Littlefinger is not a man's man either, yet he'll take Littlefinger's counsel and his advice against Varys.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, also, and I learned this on the Radio Westeros podcast, Varys showed up at court during the Mad King's reign.
And it was after he showed up that the Mad King started to get crazy.
Because the theory is that Varys, as the Master of Whispers, was just feeding Aerys all of this information and making him so paranoid. So I think that's a big part of why.
Wasn't the timeline also near when Steffan Baratheon died?
I have no idea.
Oh, in the ship?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Also, Varys, born in Lys.
Yeah.
So, who else did we have? Was Lysine? Doria. So, yeah, just putting people in free cities. Like
I think it's interesting when Jon Arryn was sick, that Robert did go to him.
Yes.
So I think
have a true love there.
So there's real. His love was fierce to see.
Chelsea, this is something you've commented on before. Why is Jon Arryn so cryptic in his last words?
This is just an issue I have. It's a writing issue.
It is.
Because there's no need for Jon Arryn's last words to be, "The seed is strong," this really cryptic phrase. If he's like, this is important information people need to know. I just think the only reason he says that is because of plot.
I don't know. I think that it's justifying it. But, the way that I've always kind of rationalized it in my head is that there's some sort of journal of Jon Arryn somewhere that Lysa probably destroyed. And he's writing down notes. And one of those notes that he would have made when he's going over the book that Ned gets later is "The seed is strong." And I think that a feverish mind would be repeating something like that. It's okay. So this
that makes sense. He's not coherent.
This is going like real deep into like just things that I know. I was on a field trip once when I was a kid at the Yankee Air Force Base in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and we were talking to a World War II vet who was a pilot, Air Force vet, and he would talk about how they used to just like fuck around with new people and make them like take off their oxygen mask as they like climbed, and make them write down, "I am Superman, I need no oxygen," and they would do that as they got deprived of air. They would be absent-mindedly doing that without even knowing it, and that's just something that like as their brains started to shut down, they just absent-mindedly repeated, "I am Superman, I need no oxygen," until they would almost pass out, and then the vets would be like, "Oh no, here you go, here's air again."
Great game to play there.
So like that's just something that always is stuck in my brain because it's weird. So that's my rationalization for the seed is strong, is that Jon Arryn's brain is shutting down, and this is something that he's repeated to himself enough as proof that his brain is just like repeating it.
It could also be, just before he closed his eyes for the last time, he whispered something to the king and his lady wife. But Pycelle had just given the milk of the poppy, so Pycelle was there. Who knows who else was there? Maybe he had to be cryptic.
Oh,
He couldn't just
That's
be
what I
like...
thought. Cersei wasn't there, but other people could have been.
I mean, Jon Arryn presumably would know who Pycelle was working for if he's sussed out the mystery to that extent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So maybe there's some...
No, but I agree with you. I mean, that's a pretty big, glaring logic.
Yeah, it's just a little. It's something that's kind of always.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that we're getting in these pages some of the, I don't know, I guess like cliches or stereotypes, just aphorisms that kind of ring true for the characters but may not be the most scientific way of investigating, like dark wings, dark words, and
I love
that as
dark
an expression,
wings,
but
dark
then
words.
Pycelle saying, "So the fishwives say, but we know that is not always so," and that the idea of poison being a woman's weapon, it could be anyone.
Yeah.
A coward does not have to do that, though it may turn out to be a woman.
Yeah, this chapter gives us a little bit more insight into the maesters and their arrogance, as we've talked about before. He talks about how, like, on that same point, the small folks say the last year of summer is always the hottest. It is not so.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone he's citing as experts are all Grand Maesters. He's talking about Grand Maester Aethelmere and what he wrote about how all men carry murder in their hearts. The tome that he gets for Lord Arryn is written by a Grand Maester. Like, the Maesters are so... You know, it's the stereotype of the college liberal.
It's the ivory tower.
It's the ivory tower.
Yeah.
You're in your bubble. You think that you and your kin are the right people and have the correct knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like it is known for Westeros, where they are comfortable with their level of knowledge, and dragons do not.
Even
enter
Maester
into it.
Luwin in the previous chapter dismisses something that he says he says of Bran, the children of Forest are all dead.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just something that is known to them.
So, are we ready to move on from the Pycelle part? Brief Arya stuff. Ned runs into Arya. This is continuing the plot of Arya training with Syrio and what he has her do. I like that Syrio says a water dancer never falls, after we just read about Bran saying, I never fall. And then...
I really like the line in that interaction where Ned thinks, but he will never run beside his wolf again, or lie with a woman, or hold his own son in his arms. Like, the things, like, these very, like, physical sensations are tied to what Ned deems of fulfilling life. He's not one to intellectualize things, and I think that that's important when thinking about Ned as this detective.
And, you know, he says he saw no use in lying to her. It's just more of like, now he's talking to her as an adult. And he's going to continue to. And Joel, the point you brought up earlier about how Arya she wants to be a king's counselor and build castles and become High Septon, and Ned's just like, no, you're gonna have lots of little lords, and she's like, no, that's Sansa, and just goes back to doing what she was doing.
Is that what you wrote, Yas?
I did write Yas when she says, can I be a king's counselor and build castles and become
This is also the mention of Bran. He might raise castles like Brandon the Builder.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to Chelsea's earlier point.
And then
I really like that Ned has respect for Sir Barristan.
Oh yes.
Ned is as valiant and honorable as any man in King's Landing. He had come to have a deep respect for the aged, white-haired Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. I just thought that interesting that the one dude on the council that he's like, this guy's all right, is pretty much just older him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
That's it, right? Next chapter, right? Jon.
So Littlefinger.
So Jon IV.
Littlefinger's waiting in his chamber, or no, he comes and
he
visits
is.
him.
No, but he gets there before
He was
Ned.
perched on the window seat.
Yeah. Another thing, talking about Selmy, another reference to his age and his mind not being as nimble as his blade. This is the image that other people, especially Littlefinger and the other people on the small council, have of Barristan.
Sure.
He's this old, maybe he was a good knight. I mean, Littlefinger even talks about how, he'll probably do good in the tournament, but they don't think of him in any high regard when it comes to his mind and his thoughts. And we'll see as the books continue if that is an accurate view to have of him or if he is a victim of ageism, which, spoiler alert, I
Even
think
profiling as a knight, I think that this is something to think about going forward. The idea of what a knight means in this world is something that I think is important to think about going forward as we look at characters who are knights, who carry the title Sir. Sir Barristan, Sir Jaime Lannister, Sir Gregor Clegane. There's these specific kind of stereotypical views of what a knight should be and how people live up to them or don't live up to them is something really important to look at throughout the series, especially when looking at the character of Sandor Clegane, who refuses to hold the title of knighthood.
Yes.
That's interesting. I didn't know he refuses it so much as it
We'll
hadn't
get more of
happened.
that later, yeah.
I kind of love in this that I want to talk in a slightly spoilery way about future things. Can we do that?
What's up? I'm sorry.
I want to talk in a spoilery way. I want to talk about the future and knowing what we know.
Wait,
I don't think
we
should.
I want to talk about the stuff on the page first.
Yeah,
right.
Least, okay. Littlefinger talking about promising Cat, and that took Ned aback. Promise or no promise.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I just saw that glancing down, but this is just more Littlefinger being a sarcastic little bitch to Ned, and Ned being frustratingly just stubborn when it comes to Littlefinger. Littlefinger's like, hey, come over this window. Ned, why? just fucking do it, Ned. Obviously he's gonna show you something. Come and I'll show you.
Okay, well I won't spoil it, but I won't spoil anything, but I love that Peter plays into the image that Ned must have of him.
Yeah.
If
For
Littlefinger
sure.
is manipulating him, he's not doing it in a way where Ned will entirely trust him. He's keeping his image of him as a mustache-twirling, semi-trustworthy, semi-untrustworthy kind of villain. Like he's playing a trickster part.
Yeah.
And that's smart because if he came off as entirely genuine to Ned, Ned would fully distrust him.
Yeah.
But that said, this is also the chapter where Ned says, perhaps I was wrong to distrust you, and Littlefinger responds with, distrusting me was the wisest thing you've done since you climbed down off your horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't help him.
I like this scene, and this is a great scene in the show too. And I just like Littlefinger at this point. I think he's making some of this up. I think he's just pointing to random people and saying like that chick works for something, and it's just making Ned paranoid for no reason. Like I think that's what's happening here. I think he's just picking random people.
The thing that I thought of reading this is two truths and a lie. Where he's like some of this is real, but some of it's not, and then he's like distrusting me was wise, so that's real.
That's the truth.
He's like that's the truth, but he's just sowing all these other things where Ned's like maybe I can trust him. Like
is that
come
guy really
on,
watching
Ned.
me? And that guy's just like hanging out.
Yeah,
But tell me about this property in Valyria.
that is the best. That's so
I
funny.
know.
Is there a man that you trust completely? Yes. In that case, I have a delightful palace in Valyria that I would dearly love
like
to
of
sell you.
course.
With a mocking smile. I
Yeah.
love it. Send this paragon of yours.
Yeah, so good. It's Jory.
Of course.
Yeah.
And Eddard Stark has no taste for these intrigues. Dude, get a taste, man. You're in King's Landing.
Yeah.
No.
This whole chapter is about him being unfit for this position and just wrong-tempered for the game.
I mean, this goes back to our earlier discussion of can someone like Ned rule? And in this situation at King's Landing, he can't. He's woefully unprepared for the type of situation that he's in. And I think that's really interesting. The other thing, too, to keep in mind is that while he is the highest ranking officer on the small council, he's really just a first among equals. Like, he's not king.
Yeah.
So even though he can kind of order them around, like, people like Varys and Pycelle and Littlefinger all have the option to ignore his orders. And Renly included. Renly and Stannis as well. Like, Stannis... Do we get Stannis in this chapter, or is that the next one?
No, that's the next one.
Okay, Stannis is just like, peace out.
Yeah.
And he's not... he should really be there, but he's not. And I think that's important to think about going forward, is that Ned isn't king.
Yeah.
As much power as he has.
Any other notes on this chapter? All right. We got 2 more. 2 left to go. We got Jon and another Ned.
What a great Jon chapter.
So many Neds. Oh, yeah. Well, that's because it's basically Sam 1.
Yeah, it is Sam 1.
It is Sam 1.
I know. Finally, 259 pages in, we finally get Sam. Oh, I wanted to do the calculation. What's 20 stone in pounds?
Oh, I wanted to look at that,
what do they call
too.
stone? Like, what is their
Stone's a measurement.
Yeah,
but
it's
what
an
is
English measurement.
But what is the stone? For them, for Westeros, that's what I wanted.
280 pounds.
Oh,
that's not that big.
It's not that bad.
Is that how much they said Sam?
Yeah.
I mean, if he's short, though...
If he's short, that's pretty heavy.
What is 1 stone?
1 stone
pounds.
is 14 pounds. So there you go, guys. Can't say you never learned anything from us here on Book Club. Yeah.
Darren refers to Jon...
Thanks, Liz. Yes, go ahead.
Darren refers to Jon as Jon, not Lord Snow.
Yeah, he's gaining everyone's respect. And that comes a lot in that fight that Alliser raises up, because he's talking about how Gren is doing the stuff that he taught him. He's really trained these guys, and of course that's going to win their respect if he makes them better. And you guys, I think it was in the week where I was absent and Liz was here, maybe, but you guys have talked about how Tyrion was insightful telling Mormont that Alliser's not a good person to lead the boys. And I was thinking to myself, that's not fair, guys. He might be a little harsh, but he's not a bad commander. But no, this chapter kind of shows that
he's a bad commander.
He's a bad guy to train these people.
Yeah.
If he were a proper manager, he would see that Jon has leadership skills and he's gained the respect of them around him.
Like George Mormont, just gonna point that out.
Like what?
He recognizes that in Jon. Yeah. But I think it's interesting.
Doesn't he barely think about Jon? He's like, oh, the Stark bastard, right?
At first, he comes to recognize this.
Yeah, not yet so far, though.
But in looking at Sir Alliser... Sorry, Chelsea, you had something?
No, I was going to say, Alliser is like that boss you have where you know that he was treated like shit when he was an employee, so now he's going to treat you like shit because that's just how it's been. And he's such a contrast to Syrio.
I was going to make that same point.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's a good, I like
you
that
look
we had
at
both those readings
well,
this week.
Syrio adjusts Arya's grip, and here we have at the beginning of this chapter Jon saying to Darren that your feet should be further apart. You don't want to lose your balance. That's good. Now pivot. So Jon is doing the same kind of things that Syrio is doing. Adjust these minor adjustments. You'll get better this way, instead of just like, go hit the fat one. Like,
yeah.
And he's giving encouragement when it's due, like with Halder. He says like, oh, you nearly got. It's just like he says, I thought I nearly had you, and he's like, you nearly did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like validating when there are good things that they've done.
For sure.
This is a great chapter to show the beginnings of Jon being a good commander and winning the respect of people below him by training them well.
Yeah.
And also recognizing when he needs to use more. Like when he threatens Rast with Ghost.
Yeah.
Like that's him knowing there are certain people that you're not going to win over with kindness.
Yes.
So you need something else to hold sway over them. And that's something that I think that that's a lesson that Ned doesn't know or never learn, perhaps, is that you can't treat people with respect and expect them to treat you the same back
All the time.
There's some people like Rast who you have to threaten with physical, like, listen to me or I'm going to have my giant-ass wolf tear your throat out,
But that stood stood out to me this time because, especially after Donald Noy gives him that talk of, you know, you need to stop being a baby, like, look at how privileged you were growing up. And I think it's interesting that Jon uses his direwolf to threaten people because he's literally kind of hiding behind the sigil of his house, which I think is...
Sure,
You know,
sure, but you also have in this, when he meets Sam, he says, "I'm Jon Snow, Ned Stark's bastard of Winterfell." He's accepting that part of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that too. That.
And he also echoes Tyrion. He quotes Tyrion in his head, which is something that is a big part of Jon. It's like Arya repeating things to people. He says, "Most men would rather deny a hard truth than face it," the dwarf had told him. So that, I think, is something really important about Jon's character, that he's learning and changing.
But yeah, I think, Chelsea, that is a good point to make, that even as he grows, he still might be thinking of himself as better than, partly due to his lineage.
Yeah.
Like, he hiding behind his house sigil, calling himself, like, he introduces himself as like, yeah, I'm Jon, Ned Stark's my dad, no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like, he's obviously growing a lot, and I really like the growth that he's experiencing, but that's the cool thing about these books and George R.R. Martin's writing is that, you know, it's not a switch that you flip. It's like growth with caveats, and he still might have a little bit of that arrogance just from being highborn.
He's so much more tolerable, though, as a character already.
For sure.
Yeah.
This is Jon IV, and he doesn't have that same kind of, like, why
Does he cry? Does he cry?
I don't think so.
Is this the first chapter we get without Jon crying?
Sam does, and he does have a moment where he's just like, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like, where does he say that? And
It's such a craven one. Yeah, it's on page 266.
266.
Like, are you afraid of everything?
Yeah, right. And
Why
he's just
are
like,
you here?
yeah, and then we get the saddest tale of Sam's origin. We also get the first mention of Corran Halfhand. Just wanted to point that out.
I noted that too.
Before we get into Sam's tale, just the idea that he's still name dropping the Starks and Ned. I think he's doing that, though, in response to Sam saying that he is of a major house. He's a
Sam
Tarly
brought
of
all his
Thornhill.
own shit, too.
Yeah.
He, like, showed up with armor and shield and all this.
Yeah. But yeah, so my point is that he's, in a way that we see is important later in the chapter, he's identifying to this other former lordling that he's of a house. And that would mean something to him. But he's still interested and not looking down on the other people. Like, he knows Pip's story. He knows Darren's story. He tells them to Sam. I think that was important, too, that he's showing that he's interested in these other people.
Sure.
But also we'll see that he does connect with Sam because they share a common experience in a different way.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, Sam's backstory is a lot more explicit here than in the show.
Yeah, I was
specifically
surprised.
I think the fact that, let's see, he says that Randall says, "Nothing would please me more than to hunt you down like the pig you are." I don't think that line's in the show. I think he just says, yeah, my dad said we would go out and he would tell my mom we had a hunting accident and leave it at that. But like, to make it so explicit, like, I will enjoy this.
Yeah.
Randall Tarly is a bad man.
I also, he has the two men from the House of the Undying come to, like, slaughter a bull oryx and bathe Sam in the hot blood, and it didn't make him brave, so Lord Tarly had them scourged.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, yeah, he has no respect for any life that isn't of his, and like, of his standard. Like, I think the only reason he has respect for his lady wife is because she lives up to his standard and finally bore him the son that he needed.
Yeah.
If there was no Dickon, I would fear for...
And obviously he was trying real hard because after 3 girls in as many years, after he realized Sam wasn't going to be the son that he wanted, he got to making kids.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was getting frustrated by that 3rd girl in 3 years that it was another girl because he wanted a new son. Also, we've compared Randall to Tywin before a lot on our What's on the Box series, and I found it interesting that The first scene in the show with Tywin, where he's talking to Jaime while dressing a stag, is a show creation, but I think they lifted that
for
from
sure.
this, where Randall is threatening Sam while skinning a deer.
It works so well in the show.
It does, especially as the sigil of the Baratheons. But yeah, our comparisons I think are validated even more so by the fact that they lifted that for Tyrion or Tywin. Sorry.
It's also interesting that Tywin, like, obviously really resents Tyrion, but he's still a Lannister.
That's true. That makes Tywin a better father than Randall Tarly.
I mean, it's not hard to be a better dad than Randall.
Are we giving so if Ned has the world's greatest dad mug in Westeros, does Randall have the world's worst dad?
Sure, especially when we get Randall later.
That's hard.
That's real.
I feel like maybe. Well, I don't want to go into dads we haven't met yet, but Craster.
Oh, Craster.
Okay.
Yeah, Craster.
Though, what would Tywin do if Tyrion were his eldest?
His
Because
firstborn,
His
yeah.
firstborn. Well,
which he essentially becomes later, and Tywin is fine, at least in the show, with him being executed.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a
Both
good
pretty
point.
bad.
Because I think Randall's biggest sticking point with Sam
is
is
that he's the eldest.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's the heir. He's
But
the heir of Heartsbane. Someone asked if we thought Heartsbane would become important. Yes. Very much so.
They wouldn't name the sword so explicitly and make it such a big deal if it wasn't.
Yeah, and this is why if you were watching What's on the Box and hadn't read the books and you saw us all getting excited over Heartsbane, that's because it's referenced in the first book. You know, that sword has had a lot of pipe laid starting this far back.
It's Valyrian steel like ice.
Yep, and it's near 500 years old. Good stuff.
The Tarlys sworn house to the Tyrells.
Yep.
Important to note. And then Jon does his little gambit with making everybody not attack.
Be nice to
Sam.
Yeah.
Further pissing off Sir Alistair. And then we're not friends, Jon said. He put a hand on Sam's broad shoulder. We're brothers. The Grey Walls of Winterfell, later on the page, the Grey Walls of Winterfell might still haunt his dreams, but Castle Black was his life now, and his brothers were Sam, Gren, and Halder and Pip, and the other cast-outs who wore the black of the Night's Watch. My uncle spoke truly, he whispered to Ghost. He wondered if he would ever see Benjen Stark again to tell him. I think that's a really important moment in Jon's arc, when he's starting to feel more at home with the Brothers of the Night's Watch than with than at Winterfell, and with he's not thinking back to his family the way that he was previous chapters. And I think that's not an accident that this is the chapter where he isn't crying.
Yeah, good call. Liz said they make Valyrian steel seem so rare, but it seems like it's everywhere. I think that's just because we know of the sword. When you have a sword that important, we're gonna hear about it.
Yeah, it comes up later that House Lannister doesn't have a Valyrian steel sword, and it's a big deal for Tywin.
Didn't they? Wasn't Joffrey's sword that he threw in the river?
No,
No.
that was just
wasn't.
a sword.
Oh no! I don't think Arya would have survived that.
No.
Got it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
They
that's
would
like
have
a
dredged
big
that
point
river.
of
For some reason, I thought that.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
huge, Tywin has tried to buy them from people, and it is, I think I've seen in an interview somewhere George said there's a few hundred. Did somebody just say that?
Well, someone said there's 8 in Westeros, but in the world there might only be 100 or so. But Liz, it's because the characters we follow are highborn.
There's
who
more
have
than
them.
8 in Westeros.
There's
There's
pretty decent
there's a
handful.
decent,
Fight over.
I could probably name more than 8 given enough time.
Jon has a dream, guys.
Yeah, let's talk
Oh,
about
the
that.
crypt dream.
The crypt dream. He goes down. The castle's empty. The stables are full of bones, and he finds himself in front of the door to the crypts, and he knows that he has to go down there. And he screams that he's not a Stark. That's not his place, but it's no good. He has to go anyway. And then he wakes up. So.
A lot of people have made a big deal about the crypt dreams, about Jon and the crypts, if there's some sort of connection there, something important. The old kings of winter are down there, sitting on their thrones with stone wolves at their feet and iron swords across their laps. I think that something will come up.
Yeah. Jon and the crypts is
Jon
a
and the
very
crypts.
powerful
The
connection that will
crypts
come up.
come up a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
this early on.
Yeah, that first, was it Ned's first chapter or second chapter?
When they go down.
They go down to the crypts. Like, right from the beginning, the crypts are there, and they're going to keep popping up. Some great scenes in the crypts later on in the later books. Can't wait for those in like a year. Yeah, I like that you point out how Jon knows his brother's stories.
Yeah.
You know, he knows how Darian wound up there. And yeah, it's just giving us a better sense of who all these people are. We have Darian, Gren, Toad, Halder, Rast, Pip. Like, these are all
named characters.
With
their own backstories.
Yeah. And the show, of course, condenses them, but we still get Gren and Pip and Rast.
Rast is in the show. He's still the villain.
Yeah.
Gren and Pip. That's all.
Oh, okay.
I like Gren and
names.
Pip.
Gren and Pip banter.
Yeah, Pip is funny, but they're.
Gren is like the kind of dense one, and there are two separate occasions of banter that's like, Gren and Pip.
I like the Night's Watch being fleshed out more.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What's up, Joe?
I like that in part of Jon's feeling more comfortable as being part of the Night's Watch and building this family there. Sam represents. Like he talks about, he's saying things out loud to Sam that he has not said to anyone else, and he's finding an outlet in friendship with him for saying some of the things that he couldn't to his other brothers. They may have to be sort of present a different front for. Like, he can confide in Sam, and I think that's important. Oh, and overall, I don't know, this chapter is interesting to me because it seems like it could be in a different kind of like YA fantasy novel where you've got your hero who's maybe he's got a past, maybe he's an orphan, but he's talented, and he's like, I think of like Ender's Game, and he's put in this group and it's competitive, and maybe the higher ups aren't that kind to him, and this would be seen as a victory, and it is for Jon and for like the family he's building there, but it's not an out-and-out victory because we know the threat of the White Walkers, and that kind of undercuts this for me because overall it's not going to help them if Sam isn't becoming a better fighter.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But I think Jon's method will eventually result in Sam being a better man, if not fighter, than anything else or could try. Sorry, our cat's making weird noises.
Standing by correction.
Last one.
Yeah.
Last one. Are we ready to move on?
Oh, and I also just like that.
Yep.
I just like what they're doing with Jon this chapter because I think that it's a new source of strength in Sam, and what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, just so you can see the change and that little bit of comfort, a little bit of like confidence and assurance that Jon gives Sam. That he invites him to the table, and then a fortnight later he starts talking. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. Just a different approach than Sir Alistair like beating him on the ground.
I love how in a few of these chapters we've had time jumps of a sort at the end of them. At the end of Arya's chapter, she talks about how long she's been practicing. Mm-hmm. Ned makes mention, I think, of something how many meetings he's been to. And this chapter where what you mentioned, Joel, it takes 2 weeks before Sam says anything. So,
Jon doesn't think it in his POV chapter, but I bet that Jon does see Arya and Sam, especially since you have Arya, who is a girl who leans towards being more masculine, and then you have Sam, who's a man and leans towards being more feminine.
Yeah, really good point.
Yeah.
He likes cakes and dancing and books.
Yeah, he likes being in the kitchen.
Dancing. I want to see Sam dance.
Yeah.
Really cute. Last chapter?
Yeah.
Eddard VI. Here we go. And in this chapter, I didn't write my little summary. Some small council stuff. And more investigation
stuff
with Gendry.
The reveal of Gendry.
Yes. I love hire 50 new men, Ned's telling Janos Slynt for protection. Lord Baelish will see that you get the coin. I will. It's like, come on, man. You just raised how much money for this tournament?
Of money.
And he's just like,
And then, I think he's poking at Ned, saying, like, do you have the authority to do this?
Yeah, he's like, oh, you want me to do this now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Ned.
And then Ned also donates 20 of his 50
God damn it,
to
Ned.
serve in the watch until the crowds have left.
Hey, Ned thinks Littlefinger's too clever by half. Ned, maybe you're too noble by half.
Yeah. Janos Slynt.
Yeah.
Jowly Janos Slint.
Frog-like Janos Slint.
Yep.
He doesn't seem too bad in this first introduction.
No, he doesn't.
He's
But
just
then,
doing his job.
You know,
Yeah.
he's Janna.
Yeah, more explanation of this heat and all the people coming to King's Landing causing a problem.
Yeah, holy
And-
shit.
Yeah,
Little
like
tinderbox.
just this list of stuff going on, man. A woman's head found in the Great
God.
Sept. What the hell? And yeah, Renly not really caring about
Yeah,
that.
they're all just like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Varys is the only one who can even feign like pity for the small folk. Everyone else is like,
Yeah.
oh, God, a head. Yeah, I bet that was a mess. to
Renly's
clean up.
always seen as laughing.
Yes,
Fortunate my brother
always.
Stannis is not with us.
Yes, this chapter has a lot
Stannis.
about Stannis.
Stannis?
A lot of what are you doing? Yeah, a lot of development about Stannis, how he proposed to outlaw brothels. That let's see, he was stern, humorless, unforgiving, grim in his sense of duty. Just love all the Stannis development, and I mean, spoiler alert, he doesn't appear in this book, but he's already being portrayed a lot. Like, we already have a great idea.
Well, it's just another kind of instance of like aspects of a mystery novel. Like, he's just another kind of like shadowy figure on the periphery of this mystery. He went with Lord Aaron
Yeah.
to go to the blacksmith, and it's like, oh, our only image of him is as this like stern, like hateful almost man who left town after
not
this
hateful.
death. Oh, not hateful,
Yeah.
but not fun-loving. by
Devoid
any
of
means.
joy.
Joyless.
Joyless.
Joyless is the best descriptor
Yeah.
of Stannis.
Sure.
Right.
And I think that it's all these people that Littlefinger pointed Ned towards after their last meeting. I found it really interesting that everybody benefited from the death of Jon Arryn. The stable boy became a watchman.
Yeah.
Sir Hugh was knighted, and then the pot boy, now a cordwainer.
I don't know what a cordwainer is, but I assume it's a step up from a pot boy.
Yeah, everybody benefits from the death of Jon Arryn, and
Yeah.
I think that that's a really interesting thing to point out when we're looking at this as a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting that the progress that Ned was making with Pycelle could have been getting him closer to something, could maybe have been too slow to get closer to something, and here he is following up on leads that Littlefinger gave him, 4 of them, and one turns out to be actually something like 3 red herrings, and then he's going off and finding something of interest.
Yeah, the cordwainer actually gives a ton of information. He'd been quarreling with Robert. He wanted his son, Robert, Sweet Robin, to be fostered on Dragonstone. He was interested in the breeding of hunting hounds. And most importantly, like you said, he visited a master armorer with Stannis. Like, that cordwainer
There's
had
a lot of clues in here.
Yeah. clues there.
Important to note that to be fostered on Dragonstone is to be fostered with Stannis
Yeah.
Yeah.
instead of
Tywin. Who
Yeah.
Cersei wanted?
Cersei
Did
wanted.
Robert also want that?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Liz pointed out that Renly talking about, like, how did Stannis ever get that daughter? He goes to his marriage bed like a man marching to a battlefield. Liz, like, how much is Renly projecting right there?
Oh, okay. So on that note, while we're talking about it, so
Yeah.
So Renly shows Ned this locket,
Yes.
and
Yes,
he
with
says,
Marjorie.
"Does this remind you of anyone?"
Page 277.
And Ned says no, and Renly says it's supposed to be Lyanna. And the last sentence of that paragraph is, that struck him as more than passing queer. Remembering that this book was written in the early mid-90s,
Yeah.
is this a pun?
I think so.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're just being a little clever.
And do you also think that Renly could have been asking, does this remind you of anyone, meaning Loras? Like, is he, like, testing this beard?
What?
Like, the
What?
picture,
Oh,
Marjorie and
no,
Loras are
that's
said
not
to
what
be
I got at
look-alike.
all.
Said to
Oh.
look alike.
Oh.
And is he like, does this remind you, like, I don't know. I'm looking for book evidence of Renly's
Yeah.
sexuality.
Oh, okay. No, I think the meta evidence is there with more than a passing queer.
Okay.
But yeah, I think and so I don't know if we should reveal
No.
why. Okay, so
No,
just
no.
an important thing to note is that Renly wants Ned to believe, and just for it to be true, that Marjorie looks like Lyanna.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Robert holds a burning passion for Lyanna. So it's just something interesting to think about. What's Renly up to right there?
I really love the Lord of the Eyrie and Hand of the King visited Rothel with italics Stannis Baratheon.
Yeah, Ned gets some funny lines in here. It would be a stroke of fortune, Jory said. Ned's like, in other words, not bloody likely. That made me laugh. And then yeah, with Jory, it's like Ned's like, I suppose you best begin visiting whorehouses. Hard duty, my lord. He grins. The men will be glad to help. Porther's already made a fair start.
And to Ned's credit, he's not like, don't do that.
Yeah, Ned's just like, have fun.
Yeah.
It's got to be done.
He says, God's help this pot boy if he sent me off chasing shadows. Yeah.
Oh, and, okay, page 278, second last paragraph.
Oh, yeah, I underlined this for you,
That's
too.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Lord Beric in the house. We get our first mention of Beric Dondarrion with his night sky / with purple lightning sigil. I love Beric Dondarrion. He's one of my favorite minor characters. He is a dashing figure on his black horsehair with red gold hair. And here to fight in the hands tourney, my lord. Here to win the hands tourney. Everyone laughs.
I think that's really important, though, to note that this is our introduction of Beric Dondarrion as this dashing figure who makes this joke, and the small folk love him.
They love him.
So I think that aside from the fact that he's a character that James really loves, I underline this paragraph as something to come back to later when we see more of Lord Beric.
Yeah. And then we get another great character, Tobo Mott.
Yeah,
The
Mott's
armor.
fun.
Mott's a lot of fun. He thinks he has to beat Gendry, and that's not great, but besides that...
Oh, that's what I thought was the funnest part.
All right, Joel. But yeah, I just love his confidence. He's like, my work is costly, and I make no apologies for that. Any village smith can hammer out a shirt of mail. My work is art. Paint and enamel are the crutches of a journeyman. Just, I love this guy.
But I also like then when they go back behind the scenes, he's got a bunch of journeymen working for him.
Yeah.
Making his stuff. I like that too.
I do like that Ned is showing a little bit of, he's showing a little bit of skill. He's learned that in staying silent, he can get more from someone than in asking questions. And I think he employed that with Pycelle. It works here. Granted, I think he's on a path that someone else set for him, but he's moving through it admirably.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to note that Mott is honest with Ned. And I think that that's part of the reason why Ned says later that he's beginning to like Master Mott.
Someone Googled Cordwainer for us.
Yes.
Cordwainer is a shoemaker who makes new shoes from new leather.
Okay.
Thanks.
How does that differ from a cobbler?
Maybe cobblers
repair shoes?
Yeah.
I don't know. Not important. Those hands were made for hammers, describing Gendry.
And that's just what they'll do.
That's what I was thinking.
I like that the book gives us an explanation as to why he has a bull helmet. It's because the others called him bull-headed, and he just owned it. I like that little bit of detail.
I think we get something like that in the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But...
Oh, and we find out that a mysterious person paid Gendry's apprenticeship fee. And where does he...
It's 282.
282, he's described?
Yeah, top of there.
Okay. So he says he was stout, round of shoulder, not so tall as you. Brown beard, but there was a bit of red in it elsewhere. He wore a rich cloak that I do remember. A heavy purple velvet worked with silver threads, but the hood shadowed his face and I never did see him clear. Can we all agree this is Varys in disguise?
Yeah, I thought Varys.
Has it come up yet that Varys...
was a mummer?
Yeah, and that he...
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but... Yeah,
Yeah.
it's likely that this is Varys.
Yeah.
And
Really?
This is just one of those things that it's a tiny little mystery dropped in the book, and they don't really come back to it.
No.
So if we came back to this later and it was like Ned realized that the guy who paid, then I wouldn't be. I would want to like keep that, but just to avoid any confusion, if you're losing sleep at night wondering who paid that apprentice
Who paid
fee,
the apprenticeship fee?
it's probably Varys.
I think it is interesting to point out, though, something that you can think think about going forward is, if it is Varys, what does Varys gain from having Gendry, who
Mummer is an
Oh
actor.
yeah, Mummer's an actor.
yeah, who is confirmed at the end of this chapter as the king's bastard?
Yes.
What purpose does that serve for Varys?
Yeah. So
Would the crown not pass to a brother first?
it definitely will.
Rather then,
A true-born son,
why?
yeah.
Then
Bastards have no place.
why
in
would
the-
Varys, if he's looking out for the good of the realm, which is a motivation I would only know from the show,
Yeah.
not feel confident with the realm in the hands of Stannis and have this bastard waiting in reserve?
Let me just say that show Varys is different than book Varys,
Okay.
and especially in regards to that motivation.
Well, it seems like he's already different in that he dresses up, apparently.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
something that's new to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I like that we can reveal that this is probably Varys, and there's still a mystery for you to think about.
Sure.
Why?
Like
Why did he do
would
it?
Yeah.
he do
You know,
it?
and we'll as that evidence comes in through the text, we'll make sure to point it out. But yeah, I will say that in the show, when Varys says that he wants what's best for the realm, I've come to believe him. In the books, maybe not so much.
Sure, I agree. Are we good, guys? Q&A?
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting real hungry. I want some pizza rolls.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know. I didn't know we still had any. I found them in the back of the freezer. I'm very
Ooh.
excited.
Nice.
Yeah. So now we got some Q&A
One, two.
outro spelled incorrectly.
No, look
You
what
just
did.
love adding constants, bro.
I did like in the chapter that we just got a description of metalworking and that he can put colors in it.
Yeah.
The guy who made Renly's armor.
That's important for
stuff.
later.
Oh, I bet it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
What,
sure.
colored
Yeah.
armor?
No, colored in metal. He also says that he can rework Valyrian steel.
Yeah.
Guys.
So how?
Hey, Gunnar.
Oh, let's take this opportunity to point out the very sad fact that next week
Oh,
will be our
yeah.
first week off.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm denying it. I'm in denial.
So there's a bastard sitting at this table who's getting married, and he just likes to let that take over his life and get in the way of really important stuff like our book club daily streams. So,
It'll happen again.
so
yeah.
next week is his bachelor party.
Dothraki style, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna kill you for not having to go,
I
not
know.
being able to
I
go.
wish I could go. I can't go.
To the wedding?
No, to
Okay,
the bachelor
to the bachelor party.
party.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll be having a bachelor party. I will be there, and we won't be able to make
We
it
won't-
back
yeah.
in time for book club.
Right.
So, sorry, we're gonna take one.
It'll
week
also
off.
be my birthday.
Oh, good. At least we can get.
I'm so sorry. Oh.
So yeah, sorry, we're gonna take 1 week off, and then I believe 1 week on, and then another week off, which sucks.
What's that one for?
Oh,
Disneyland.
we're going to
We're gonna
Disney.
be at Disneyland.
yay.
So I know that we really want to keep this consistent, just so we don't lose you guys, and you know, the changing times hasn't helped. But please just bear with us, because this is still, if you think long term, this is still the very beginning of this book club.
Yeah,
we have
we
so
have a
much more
long
reading
way to
do.
go.
So don't give up on us. We have so much more fun stuff to get into.
Oh, shit.
So if we're a little
Oh,
inconsistent, girls only book club. I don't know.
I think about it.
You
I mean,
would-
it depends on what like you guys feel comfortable missing though.
I'm comfortable
I'm
missing if
fine.
you feel comfortable running one.
Would it be me, Liz, and Sam?
We can talk. We'll
We'll
talk about it off camera.
Yeah.
Okay, we might have one next week with Liz and Chelsea and
That'd be
hopefully
cool.
Sarah. That'd be cool. You
Yeah.
would be unable to make that as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll be out of town. right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But we'll let you know. Follow us on Twitter if you don't. Anyone who's here is obviously a member of our book club. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Practical Folks. That's where we dispel the most information about this, and when things change, which unfortunately they do sometimes, that's where we'll let you know. We can't always make a video and put it on the channel letting you know. But yeah, in light of that, what should the next assignment be? I was thinking it would start with...
Well, it changes if it's 2 weeks or 1 week.
Oh, does it?
But does it, because we still have to cover it all in a live stream, and do you want to sit here
Oh
for 5 hours?
shit, you're right.
yeah.
You know,
Let's
so
not
So,
do it.
let's
Yeah.
still make it the usual
Okay.
length. So we'll
So
start
that's
with
about-
Catelyn 5. That's at page 283 in our book, and I figure it would go to about 360 thereabouts.
Yeah.
So 358 is pretty close, and that is the end of Eddard VIII. So does that sound good? From 282 to 250 or 358. What's that math-wise?
It's almost 80.
75 pages, like our usual amount.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the pace? Do you?
I feel pretty good about it because it seems to be really consistently 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and that's a long time.
Yeah, I would love to read more and get through this faster, but I can't sit here for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And discuss things. Like 2.5 is long enough as it is. So let's go with. Oh, Liz, it might happen, man, because I'd rather have consistency, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Catelyn 5 on page 283 of this
Caitlin,
book.
you got to catch up. Then maybe you can get in on that too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great.
That would be
Caitlin, do it
For sure.
And that'll be to the end of Eddard 8. Eddard gets so many chapters.
Yeah.
And that's page 358. So once again, 283 to 358 is your next assignment. We'll try to include that in more information. I know you guys want that in the description of this and such. Yeah, Paige, I'm a slow reader too. Don't feel bad about it. And this pace, like I usually can't get through it during the week, so I woke up early this morning and did it, and it was fine. I was able to do it. What are you doing? Oh, that's a good idea. Put it right in there.
Nice.
Which chapter?
What chapters is it?
Catelyn 5 to Eddard 8. So that'll be, we'll get a Catelyn in there, another Sansa, good stuff. 2 Eddards, and a Tyrion. Ooh, that sounds all good stuff.
Good.
That's good stuff.
Back to Tyrion.
Yeah. Oh, and an Arya. Damn. You guys got a lot of fun stuff going. Questions. Let's do some Q&A. What do you guys got? What are you thinking about this stuff?
Yep.
Did I spell assignment right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. That would have been embarrassing. Yeah, we're gonna. These seem to be pretty consistently 2.5 hours. That's what we're gonna try to keep it at. Oh, Caitlin has read the first book. There you go, then.
All right.
Well, yeah. Read these.
Read
specific
those.
chapters
Yeah,
and
read
get
those
all up in
chapters,
here.
and then maybe we'll stay tuned on Twitter for whether or not there will be a girls-only book club. That would be pretty cool. That would.
A time zone poll, asking what time zone people are in. Yeah, we can do that. We'll add that poll. To
I mean,
this
we're
video.
pretty
But
stuck in Pacific time.
Yeah, we're
like,
tied to it.
Yeah.
But, and honestly, I think this time we're
Three.
great for
Yeah.
us,
This
3 to
is
6.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to do three to 5:30, 6 o'clock every time we do one of these. I think that's gonna be the standard time.
Because, yeah, if it's at 1, then I might not be able to wake up and read in time if I have to do that. And if
Yeah.
it's later, I don't like that.
We can't do. I don't want to do later. I like that it's earlier in the day. So sorry for people who are in Europe or elsewhere, but it seems like we're going to be doing this 3 to 6 range.
A little off topic, but I was wondering, why does Jon get to keep Ghost when he goes to the wall? Maybe they just think it'll help.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
I think it's
Direwolf's not a
probably
bad
good
thing.
to have a direwolf around, especially one that's domesticated. I mean, we see later in the series their advantage. And, like, I think people, as we learn from Tyrion, I think people are just scared of him.
Yeah.
You know?
And as Mormont revealed in the case of Royce, highborns do get a little bit of
That's
special
true.
treatment on the
Yeah,
wall.
like
and
it's-
being Benjen's nephew can hurt.
And I think that Sam would have been able to keep his shit had it been black.
Oh,
I think
sure.
that's the implication. Like, oh, he brought all this cool shit, but none of it's black. Whereas Sir Waymar's, George points out how black everything is.
Oh,
None more black.
No
Do you think
more.
Sam grabbed that stuff himself, or did
No, Randall gave it to
Randall
him.
prepared that for him?
Yeah.
Randall-
Sam's not like, oh, I need my great helm.
it's an expression to take the black? I wonder if that was just a dig from Randall.
Clarence,
Oh, like here's all the shit that you won't be able to keep.
Yep.
thoughts on how sexuality is viewed in Westeros? Is it appropriate or even needed? I think it's definitely needed.
Yeah,
you know,
there's a
just-
lot written about George's use of sexuality and sex and sexual violence and things. I think it's all, as you go through and you look at the text, I think none of it is without narrative point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how much better Renly's sexuality is handled in the books compared to the show.
Oh, really good.
Yes,
Oh,
It is
definitely.
a lot more
Renly-
subtle. We get to see Renly as more of a person. I don't know. I just think it's handled a lot more deftly.
Yeah, Renly is one of the biggest flops of an adaptation of a character, in my opinion, from book to show.
Yeah.
Mostly because all of his scenes seem to be just gay stuff.
We'll get more discussion of sexuality too when Oberyn gets on the scene.
Yeah, and as far as just
and Dorne in general.
And as far as just how prominent sexuality and sex is, I mean, it's just, it's a huge part of human nature and human experience.
I feel like, homosexuals in this world are looked down upon, like especially in Westeros, but it's never, at least not that I can recall, outlawed or punished.
It's never punished. Well,
unless you're thinking of the Fate.
Yeah, later.
Yeah.
But I mean, like we learn when we meet Dorne that there is a very sexually open culture and society. The free cities are a little bit more open with that. Both Dany and Cersei have. I don't want to spoil stuff.
Paige, do we get in the books how much of an act Pycelle puts on as we do in the show? No.
No.
That was actually the actor Julian Glover complaining that Pycelle didn't have that much to do, and it was because of that we got that scene in the season 1 finale of Pycelle showing his virility.
And the workout routine.
Yeah, and there's also a deleted scene between Pycelle and Tywin. If you look that up, it's online. It's on YouTube, I think.
It's very good.
It's a great scene. It's Tywin and Pycelle. It makes you really miss Charles Dance. And
I'm glad it got cut, though.
Yeah.
It was a little too
weird
on the nose.
But but Tywin's basically like, cut the shit. I know that you're not as frail as you depict.
Yeah.
We never get Tywin chapters, so the amazing scene between him and Pycelle doesn't really happen. Yeah. That happens. Yeah, Lucy is reenacting the sitcom. Oh yeah, also just give a thumbs up to the video, subscribe if you're not, you definitely should be by now.
Yeah, Freya points out that we also don't get the great stuff between Tywin and Arya. No, that was a show-only invention, and it's awesome.
I love those scenes so much.
It's part of what makes season 2 maybe the best season of the show.
We won't get that until Clash.
I'm curious to see where she goes, if not Harrenhal.
Well,
just let it happen. Yeah. Good. Let's see.
Any other cues? Or we're going to start wrapping it?
Yeah, because I want them pizza rolls.
Did you guys see the commercial with Jason Mantzoukas as the spokesperson for Tostinos?
No.
Yeah.
It's Totino's.
Totinos.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Dumbass.
Sorry, pizza rolls.
Come on.
Sorry, pizza rolls.
Yeah, if you haven't bought the books.
Oh, should I do the spiel? Oh, I didn't put those links in the description. God damn it.
Buy my book. Buy my book.
I'm liking the experience right now, so I'm reading along, and I'm reading the book first, the text, and then listening to the audiobook just kind of as I drive. And it's interesting because, I don't know, I get sort of a different perspective on how another voice would read it and see different imagery in my head. I'm liking that.
What? God damn it.
We'll add it later.
I'm going to add it now because I'm going to talk about it.
Okay.
What?
We can't see the cues.
Yeah, I got to see the cues, bro.
To get those A's.
I'm going to add it.
Sorry, guys. Graessle just hates you.
I do.
He talks about all the time how much he hates our awesome fans.
You guys are assholes. Not
back to the cues. See, he's calling you assholes.
All right.
I can't see him. What's your favorite chapter this time around?
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
I love these chapters, guys. I might have to go with Bran, just for the long night description, the old Nan scene.
I like Eddard chapters because I just like King's Landing stuff.
Which one did you prefer out of the two we read here?
You
got him checking out Gendry and him
talking to Pycelle and Littlefinger. The first one. I like the Pycelle and Littlefinger one.
You like the really long-winded Pycelle passages?
I do.
I got a little sick of them. I was like, oh,
I like it.
All right.
Probably sicker than his Ned got.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the Dany chapter. It's
a good Dany
it's on game
chapter.
for me. But yeah, I like that we got this really cool imagery of Essos, and I like that we get a kind of complete arc for her, seeing where she is now, how she got to that point, and then making some power moves.
Yeah, marriage has changed you, man. What's your favorite chapter?
I, not surprisingly, really liked the Jon chapter with Sam's introduction.
It's great.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I also really liked Eddard II. I liked going to find the
Gendry.
Gendry.
Yeah.
All the mentions of Stannis. I thought was really interesting. I like that we're ramping up the mystery a little bit. I wish that we would have gotten a Catelyn chapter this week. I think that Cat chapters and Ned chapters play off of each other really well because they both are trying to solve the same mystery and neither of them have all the information.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. I also really love the Arya chapter. I like the introduction of Syrio. I like Father Ned.
Yeah, Caitlin asked our favorite moments from these chapters. The Ned-Arya conversation is definitely up there for me.
Yeah.
Along with Littlefinger's scene with Ned. And the long night passage from Old Man.
I love Tyrion giving Bran the plans for a saddle.
Yeah.
I always love that scene.
Yeah, it's a great
Crippled
one.
bastards and broken things.
Yeah.
Lewin in there too, being like, "This is a good thing."
I love Sam and John's conversation when they have their heart-to-heart about their
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. That is really great. Shall we wrap up?
I think so.
I think that's good, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
This has been such an experiment doing this book club, but obviously a bunch of you like this, and I hope that you keep watching as we get into the meatier parts of the series going forward.
I'm going to just do the Patreon pitch.
Go ahead.
Okay, if you do enjoy book club as well as a lot of our other content and you subscribe to the channel and have been enjoying all of our stuff, please click the link to our Patreon video, which is now in the description below if you refresh the video, if you haven't already. For as little as $12 a year, you can make a big difference in how we produce our videos. We are using a lot of new equipment, including 2 brand new microphones.
Oh yeah, if we sounded better and there weren't problems this week,
So far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we have had no problems with our stream this week, and that is because of improvements we've made due to your contributions. So please, if you like our content, please consider clicking the link in the description below to our Patreon page. We have all kinds of rewards that we've started giving out. From behind-the-scenes videos, you get our videos early, not the live ones, obviously, and cool other stuff. So click that link and do that. Again, $1 a month, $12 a year. It's, that's less than coffee, and you can make a big difference to our channel. So please consider becoming a patron.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anything else?
I never know where to look.
What? Just look at the camera.
I know, but
how's that hard? So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll be here maybe next week. We will keep you informed. And if we're gonna have an all-girl power meeting, which would be great for this series.
That'd be cool.
It's just, especially because you get Sansa,
Cat,
and Arya, and Cat.
Oh yeah.
it would be a good week.
That's
to,
good stuff.
To do it. I would hate to
think
miss a
about it.
Sansa chapter, but
Yeah, right. But I had to miss Tyrion stuff, so we'll let you guys know. God, you can tell what chapters I've covered.
Yeah, ew, my
book.
book is so gross.
I know
Yeah.
mine's so beat
Like,
up.
it's just
Oh
so
wow, yeah, mine
gross.
too.
Just from
Yeah.
Just like, like greasy.
Yeah, pencil,
Yeah.
penning.
I kind of
yeah.
like it. I like seeing this demarcation.
Yeah.
But whether it's 1 week or 2, we will be back with more chapters. And until then, I'm James.
I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Joel.
And this.
It's
What's in these books?
books.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.